this western bank, where the Sleepless Ancient Odyssey, the day is done. It is time now to let the noise of your world fade into silence. Find your most comfortable position, and for the next few moments, simply relax. Tonight's Odyssey is about to begin. Tonight, we journey to the Giza Plateau, 4,500 years into the past. You will witness the construction of humanity's most enigmatic monument. You will walk among the priests and artisans who served a god-king, and you will discover what lies within the pyramid's secret heart. This is not merely history. This is a meditation on eternity itself, carved in stone. Whether you are here for a story to captivate your mind or a grand narrative to accompany you to sleep, your journey starts now. If you enjoy these odysseys, subscribe and join us every time we travel to the past. Now let us begin. The desert stretches endlessly beneath a sky so blue it seems painted by the hand of heaven itself. The year is approximately 2560 before the Common Era. The Nile floods and recedes in its eternal cycle. Along its banks, civilization flourishes in a narrow green ribbon between two vast seas of sand. And here, on the western plateau overlooking the river, something unprecedented is taking shape. They call him Khufu, second pharaoh of the 4th dynasty, son of Sneferu, beloved of the gods. His father built pyramids, yes, multiple pyramids, each an experiment in angles and ambition. But Khufu dreams of something different, something absolute, a monument so perfect, so geometrically pure that it will anchor the very sky to earth. The site chosen is not arbitrary. The Giza Plateau rises naturally from the floodplain, a massive limestone shelf formed over millions of years when ancient seas covered this land. The bedrock here is strong, stable, capable of bearing unimaginable weight. Priests have studied the stars, calculated angles, consulted the gods. This western bank, where the sun dies each evening, is the realm of the dead, the gateway to the afterlife. Stand here in the early morning, before the sun has burned away the cool darkness. The camp is already stirring. Tens of thousands of workers wake in temporary villages built specifically for this purpose. These are not slaves, as later legends will claim, but skilled laborers, farmers fulfilling their corvée duty during the flood season when their fields lie underwater. They are fed, housed, cared for when injured. They are building eternity, and they know it. The smell of bread baking, the sound of copper tools being sharpened against stone, overseers calling out in voices that carry across the plateau, engineers consulting papyrus scrolls covered in calculations, measurements refined over generations of pyramid building. Everything Sneferu learned, everything the architects of Djoser's step pyramid discovered, has led to this moment. The foundation has already been laid with extraordinary precision. Teams of surveyors have leveled the bedrock base to within centimeters of perfect flatness across an area larger than 5 football fields. They used water channels, allowing the water to find its own level, then cutting the stone to match. The pyramid will be oriented to the cardinal directions with an accuracy that will baffle future generations. North, south, east, west, aligned to the stars themselves. Picture the plan if you can, a square base, each side measuring 230 meters. Rising from this foundation, approximately 2.5 million blocks of limestone, each weighing on average 2.5 tons. Some much larger, some smaller, all fitted together so precisely that a blade cannot slide between them, ascending to a height of 146 meters, making it the tallest structure in the world, a title it will hold for nearly 4,000 years. But the true wonder is not the exterior. The true wonder lies within. Deep inside the design, known only to the king's most trusted architects, is a chamber, not at the base, where one might expect a pharaoh to rest, but high, impossibly high, within the body of the pyramid itself. A room carved from the living bedrock and built up with granite blocks hauled from quarries 600 miles to the south. A space designed not just to house a sarcophagus, but to perform a function we may never fully understand. They call it the king's chamber, though Khufu will not rest there for many years yet. He is alive, vital, probably in his 30s, ruling from Memphis, making offerings to Ra and Horus, administering the double crown of Upper and Lower Egypt. The pyramid is not a tomb built in grief. It is a machine built in hope, a device for transformation, a gateway. The first stones are already in place. Layer upon layer, they will rise through the decades. This is not a project of months or even years. This is a project of a lifetime. Khufu will oversee its construction until his death. His son may complete it. The workers laying stones today will never see it finished. Their children will continue the work. As the sun rises higher, the limestone begins to glow. White Tura limestone, the finest in Egypt, will eventually case the entire structure, making it shine like a second sun on the plateau. But that is for later. Now, in these early stages, the work is rhythm and repetition. Teams of men dragging blocks on sledges, ramps being built, extended, shifted as the pyramid grows, copper saws cutting through stone, wooden levers and bronze crowbars easing blocks into position. Inside the growing mass, corridors are being formed, not as an afterthought, but as an integral part of the design. The descending passage, angling downward into the bedrock below, the ascending passage, rising through the stone at the same angle in reverse, and above that, still to come, the Grand Gallery, a corbelled masterpiece of architecture that will take the breath away from anyone who sees it. But the heart, the Sacred Heart, is the chamber that waits at the end of this journey, a room approximately 10 meters long, 5 meters wide, and 6 meters high, walls of polished granite, a ceiling of 9 granite slabs, each weighing perhaps 40 tons, somehow lifted into place and laid across the space. Above those slabs, 5 stress-relieving chambers, one atop the other, distributing the enormous weight of the pyramid so that the king's chamber itself bears no load. Why such elaborate construction? What is this room meant to contain? What is it meant to do? The priests say it is a place of transformation, where the pharaoh's body will be prepared for its journey to the stars. The architects say it is an achievement of engineering, solving problems no one has solved before. The workers say it is the will of a god-king made manifest in stone. Perhaps all of them are right. Perhaps none of them fully understand what they are creating. The day grows hot. The work continues. It will continue tomorrow and the day after, and for years beyond counting. Stone upon stone, chamber within chamber, mystery within mystery. The Great Pyramid is rising on the horizon, and nothing in the world will ever be quite the same. To understand the king's chamber, we must first understand the minds that conceived it. The ancient Egyptians were not primitive builders guided by brute force and mysticism. They were master mathematicians and engineers who understood principles that would not be formalized in other cultures for thousands of years. In the House of Life, the temple complex where scribes and priests are trained, young men learn the secrets of geometry. They study by lamplight, copying problems onto limestone flakes and pottery shards, how to calculate the volume of a truncated pyramid, how to determine the area of a circle, how to use the sekid, their measurement of slope, to ensure a pyramid rises at the perfect angle. The sect for Khufu's pyramid is 5 palms and 2 fingers per cubit of height. In our terms, this creates a slope of approximately 51 degrees, not arbitrary, not accidental. This angle emerges naturally from a relationship between pi and phi, the golden ratio, though the Egyptians approach these concepts through practical geometry rather than abstract mathematics. They know what works. They know what endures. The king's architects, men whose names have mostly been lost to time, carry the weight of enormous responsibility. One of them, perhaps, is named Hemiunu. He may be the vizier, the prime minister of all Egypt, and simultaneously the overseer of this great work. If he exists, he is a man who understands both politics and physics, who can speak to pharaohs and stonemasons, with equal fluency. These architects work with tools that seem simple: copper tools, wooden measuring rods, plumb bobs weighted with stone, string lines stretched taut to ensure straightness. Yet with these simple tools, they achieve accuracy that rivals modern construction. The base of the pyramid, when complete, will deviate from perfect by less than 2 centimeters across a length of 230 meters. The orientation to true north will be off by less than 1/20th of a single degree. How do they measure so precisely? At night, they watch the stars. They construct a circular wall and fill it with water to create an artificial horizon. They observe circumpolar stars, marking their positions as they rotate around the celestial pole. Through patient observation and careful mathematics, they determine true north without compasses, without instruments, with nothing but the eternal turning of the heavens. But the king's chamber presents unique challenges beyond simple geometry. It must be built high within the structure, accessible only through narrow passages. It must be strong enough to withstand millions of tons of stone pressing down from above. It must be sealed, eventually, so perfectly that no one can enter. And it must contain something, some element of design that transforms it from mere room into sacred space. The granite for the chamber has been selected with extraordinary care. Quarried at Aswan, in Egypt's deep south, this igneous rock is infinitely harder than limestone. It cannot be cut with copper tools. Instead, workers use stone pounders, probably dolerite, pounding channels into the granite to split it along natural floors. This is not quick work. A single granite block might take weeks to extract, shape, and polish. Once freed from the quarry, the blocks begin their journey north. Loaded onto barges, they float down the Nile during the flood season when the river rises close to the desert's edge. At Giza, they are unloaded and dragged on sledges to the pyramid site. Water is poured on the sand before the sledges, reducing friction. Teams of men, perhaps 50 per block, pull in rhythm, singing work songs that help coordinate their efforts. Pull and rest. Pull and rest. Meter by meter, the granite moves toward its destiny. The precision required for the king's chamber goes beyond anything attempted in the pyramid's outer layers. The granite blocks must fit together with almost no gaps. The walls must be perfectly vertical. The floor must be level. This is not just for aesthetics. The chamber has a function, and that function depends on geometric purity. Inside the chamber, when it is finally complete, will sit a rectangular stone coffer. Not a sarcophagus, not yet, because Khufu still lives, but the coffer is being prepared, carved from a single block of chocolate-colored granite. It is larger than the entrance to the chamber will be. This means it must be installed while the chamber is still being built, before the final walls are sealed. Once in place, it can never be removed without destroying the chamber itself. The coffer's dimensions are precise. Its internal volume, some scholars will later note, appears to be designed around specific measurements. Is it sized to hold a standard sarcophagus? Or is it sized to hold something else entirely? The coffer has no inscriptions, no decorations. It is a perfect rectangular form, corners meeting at precise right angles, interior polished to a mirror finish. Above the king's chamber, the stress-relieving chambers present their own mystery. 5 of them, stacked one atop another like a geological layer cake. The lowest has a flat ceiling and is tall enough for a man to crouch inside. The upper chambers have progressively angled ceilings, culminating in a peaked roof that disperses the pyramid's weight outward to the surrounding structure. These chambers are not meant to be seen. Once the pyramid is sealed, no one will enter them for thousands of years. Yet they are built with the same care as the king's chamber itself. Why? Because the architects understand that the strength of the structure depends not on what can be seen, but on what lies hidden. The visible rests upon the invisible. The known depends upon the unknown. In the evenings, when work stops and the sun sets in flames of orange and gold, the architects sometimes climb to the highest point of the pyramid as it currently stands. They look out across the plateau, toward Memphis in the distance, toward the Nile snaking through its valley. They see the other pyramids, Khufu's father's attempts at Dahshur, bent and red, standing like elder siblings to this new creation. They know they are building something that will outlast kingdoms. They know in their bones that when their civilization is dust, when their language is forgotten, when their gods are no longer worshipped, this structure will remain. And deep within it, sealed in darkness and silence, the king's chamber will wait. For what? For whom? That question echoes through the centuries, unanswered still. The mathematics are perfect, the engineering is sound, the materials are the finest available. Every calculation has been checked and rechecked, every angle measured and confirmed. Yet there remains something inexplicable about the chamber, something that transcends mere numbers. Perhaps it is the intention woven into every stone. Perhaps it is the accumulated human effort, thousands of workers giving years of their lives to a vision they will never fully see realized. Or perhaps it is simply this, that some spaces, by virtue of their construction and purpose, become more than the sum of their parts. They become thresholds. They become doorways to something beyond the merely physical. The pyramid grows, layer by layer, toward the sky. Morning arrives with the smell of bread and beer, the workers' breakfast. In the temporary villages surrounding the pyramid, life has developed its own rhythms, its own culture. These villages are not squalid encampments, but organized communities with bakeries, breweries, workshops, and even medical facilities where injured workers are treated. The workers are divided into crews, each with its own name and identity. Friends of Khufu, one crew might be called. Enduring is the white crown of Sneferu,
Now I know
says
why you all
another,
clicked on this
honoring
video.
the
You wanted to
previous
watch me
pharaoh.
get 4,000 watch hours.
Within these
in 3
large
days.
crews are smaller divisions, gangs of perhaps 200 men each, and within those, smaller teams of 10 or 20 who work together, sleep together, share meals together. These men come from all over Egypt. Some are from the delta in the north, where the Nile splits into countless channels and the land is thick with papyrus. Others are from Upper Egypt, the southern regions where the river runs narrow and the temples grow massive. They speak slightly different dialects, worship local variations of the same gods, bring with them regional techniques and traditions. What unites them is the work, the endless, grinding, glorious work of building eternity. Each morning, teams report to their section of the pyramid. Some work on the ramps, the enormous causeways of mud, brick, and rubble that spiral up the pyramid's sides, allowing stones to be dragged ever higher. These ramps must constantly be extended, reinforced, adjusted as the pyramid grows. They are temporary structures, destined to be dismantled once the pyramid is complete, yet they require nearly as much material as the pyramid itself. Other teams work on quarrying fresh limestone from the Giza Plateau itself. The plateau provides most of the pyramid's core blocks, rough-hewn limestone that will be hidden beneath the fine outer casing. Quarrymen drive copper tools into natural cracks, insert wooden wedges, then soak the wedges with water. As the wood expands, the stone splits along predictable lines. The blocks are then shaped with stone hammers, rough but sufficient for interior work. The finest limestone comes from Tura, across the river. These brilliant white blocks will form the pyramid's outer surface, creating a facade so smooth and bright that it will be visible for miles. Tura limestone is harder to work but worth the effort. Crews of stonecutters camp at the Tura quarries, cutting blocks to specification, marking them with red ochre to indicate their destination and position. And then there is the granite, the precious, difficult, beautiful granite from Aswan. Only a relative handful of blocks compared to the millions of limestone pieces, but each one is crucial. The granite will line the king's chamber and the passages leading to it. Granite for the portcullis blocks that will seal the ascending passage, granite for the coffer that will rest in the chamber's heart. Moving a granite block is an achievement that requires coordination, patience, and considerable skill. The blocks are loaded onto wooden sledges, the sledges are greased with water or fat, and teams of workers pull them using ropes made from twisted papyrus or palm fiber. The work is hard, there is no denying it. Shoulders ache, hands blister and callous, backs strain under the effort of pulling weight that seems impossible to move. Yet there is also pride. These workers know what they are creating. They see the pyramid rising, dominating the skyline more each day. They know their children will point to it and say, "My father built that." They know their names might be carved in the hidden spaces, small graffiti left by work gangs marking their contribution. The crew of the powerful White Crown worked here. Simple words that will outlast empires. The ramp system is a marvel in itself. Some theories suggest a single ramp rising from one side. Others propose multiple smaller ramps, or a spiral ramp encircling the pyramid as it grows. What matters is that somehow, impossibly, blocks weighing tons are being raised to heights that rival the tallest trees in Egypt, and then higher still until they reach elevations where no tree has ever grown. A block placed wrong on the bottom course is a minor issue. This is delicate work, different from the heavy labor of hauling stones. How to make a passage so straight that a plumb line dropped from its entrance will touch the floor at its far end. The workers in these interior spaces labor by lamplight. Sometimes the desert heat simply becomes too much and a man collapses. When this occurs, the work stops. The body is treated with respect. Prayers are offered, offerings made. Then the work resumes, because the work must always resume. When a difficult placement is achieved, when a granite block that took weeks to position finally slides into its perfect spot, the workers cheer. When the final stone of a course is laid and the entire level is complete, beer is distributed, an extra ration given to celebrate progress. These are human beings, not automatons. They gossip and laugh, complain about overseers, wonder about their families back home. The workers, who will eventually fit the granite walls together, have probably not yet joined the project. They may still be children, playing along the Nile, unaware that they will one day enter the pyramid's heart and contribute to its most sacred space. Time passes differently on the plateau. Days blend into months, months into years. The pyramid grows, the angle remains true, the vision persists. While workers labor on the physical pyramid, priests and theologians contemplate its spiritual dimensions. Just as the sun rises each morning, conquering darkness, the pyramid rises from the plateau, conquering mortality itself. Orion, associated with Osiris, the god of resurrection, the circumpolar stars that never set, never die, eternally circling the celestial pole. When the pharaoh's soul leaves his body, it will ascend through this shaft, joining the imperishable stars, becoming one with the eternal order of the cosmos. The position within the pyramid is not convenient, but cosmologically significant. When the pharaoh's mummified body is placed inside and the lid is sealed, the coffer becomes a microcosm of the chamber, which is itself a microcosm of the pyramid, which is itself a microcosm of the cosmos. In the mystery schools, initiates are taught that death is not an end, but a transition. And demons, speaking the correct words of power, eventually emerging triumphant in the east, just as Ra, the sun god, emerges each dawn. or perhaps because the architects and priests understand that certain spaces have power independent of whether anyone witnesses them. The Grand Gallery's proportions create acoustic properties, resonances that may have played a role in ceremonies conducted before the pyramid was sealed. The King's Chamber continues this theme of sacred acoustics. Its dimensions create specific resonant frequencies when sound is introduced. A deep voice, chanting, or a bronze gong struck in the chamber's center produces standing waves that fill the space with vibration. Those present would feel the sound as much as hear it, the granite walls themselves seeming to vibrate with power. This is speculation, of course, but informed speculation based on later Egyptian texts and practices. We know the Egyptians valued sound as a sacred force. The god Ptah created the world through speech. The goddess Hathor's sistrum instrument was shaken to drive away chaos and restore order. Sound was not mere noise, but a fundamental aspect of reality itself, a tool for shaping and transforming. In the king's chamber, with its hard granite surfaces and precise proportions, sound would behave in unusual ways. The chamber is large enough to avoid feeling claustrophobic, but small enough that sound reinforces itself rather than dissipating. If rituals were performed there, if priests chanted the sacred words of transformation while the pharaoh's body lay in the coffer, the experience would have been overwhelming, a full-body immersion in resonant power. But all of this remains in the future. The chamber still exists only in plan, in the minds of architects and priests. The space where it will eventually stand is currently solid limestone, part of the pyramid's growing mass. Workers are laying courses somewhere below, not yet reaching the level where the chamber will be carved out and built up. The priests who understand the chamber's deeper meaning probably visit the site regularly, observing progress, ensuring that the work adheres not just to physical specifications, but to sacred requirements. They may perform small rituals on the plateau, offerings to Ptah, god of craftsmen, asking for his blessing on the work, offerings to Thoth, god of wisdom and writing, who knows the secrets of geometry and mathematics, offerings to Osiris, who will eventually receive the pharaoh's transformed spirit. In the temple schools, young priests are being trained who will, decades hence, perform the final sealing ceremonies. They are learning the hymns, the prayers, the exact sequence of actions required. They are memorizing the Book of the Dead, not yet written on papyrus but passed down orally, knowledge too sacred to be commonly recorded. These young priests do not yet know that they will be among the last humans to see the king as chamber before it is sealed. They do not know that their voices will be the last sound the chamber hears for thousands of years. They are simply learning their craft, much as the workers are learning theirs, each contributing to a grand design that no single person fully comprehends. The pyramid is many things to many people. To the workers, it is labor and pride. To the architects, it is the ultimate engineering challenge. To the pharaoh, it is his gateway to eternity. To the priests, it is a sacred instrument, a machine for manufacturing divinity. All of these perspectives are true. All of them are incomplete. Perhaps the pyramid is simply what it appears to be, 2.5 million stones stacked with extraordinary precision. Or perhaps it is something more, something that will continue to generate mystery and speculation for as long as humans remember how to ask questions. The sun sets behind the pyramid's growing bulk, casting an enormous shadow across the plateau. For a moment, the structure seems to darken half the world. Then night falls completely, stars emerge, and the workers retire to their villages, to their simple meals and simple pleasures, to sleep and dreams before tomorrow's labor begins again. Somewhere in the pyramid's heart, still surrounded by solid stone, the space that will become the king's chamber waits to be born. Years have passed. The pyramid is now approximately halfway to its final height. The descending passage has been completed, cutting down through the limestone and into the bedrock below, terminating in an unfinished chamber that will remain forever mysterious in its purpose. And now the ascending passage is being built, rising from the junction point at the same angle the descending passage falls. This is one of the most critical phases of construction. The ascending passage is narrow, barely a meter wide, and just over a meter high. It climbs at a steep angle for approximately 40 meters before reaching the Grand Gallery. Building it requires workers to labor in increasingly confined spaces, fitting limestone blocks with extraordinary precision, creating a passage so straight and true that it seems to defy the limitations of copper tools and human hands. The passage is lined with limestone, each block cut to fit perfectly with its neighbors. The corners where walls meet ceiling are particularly challenging. Any gap, any imperfection, represents a potential weak point. The millions of tons of stone above will press down through the centuries, seeking any flaw, any opportunity to shift or settle. The passage must be strong enough to withstand this pressure essentially forever. Special attention is paid to the sealing mechanism. At the bottom of the ascending passage, there will eventually be 3 massive granite plugs, blocks of Aswan granite, cut to exactly match the passage's dimensions. These plugs, currently stored elsewhere, will slide down the passage after the pharaoh's burial, sealing the way to the king's chamber permanently. The passage must be built to accommodate these plugs, while also ensuring they cannot be easily removed once in place. The construction technique is ingenious. As the pyramid rises, the ascending passage is built within it, surrounded by solid limestone on all sides. It is not carved out of existing stone, but constructed as an integral part of each course, a hollow needle threading up through the pyramid's body. This means perfect coordination between the teams building the exterior and those working on the interior passages. Imagine the challenge. Workers outside are laying course after course of limestone blocks, creating the pyramid's mass. Meanwhile, workers inside are building the passage, fitting blocks that must align precisely with the exterior courses. Any miscommunication, any error in measurement, and the passage could veer off course, become misaligned, potentially compromise the entire structure. Yet they achieve it. The passage rises straight and true, climbing toward the level where the Grand Gallery will begin, where the ceiling will suddenly soar upward and the confined space will open into architectural magnificence. Working in the ascending passage is not for everyone. The space is dark, tight, claustrophobic. Workers must crawl or crouch, unable to stand upright. The air is thick with limestone dust and the smoke from oil lamps. The weight of stone pressing in from all sides is psychologically oppressive, a constant reminder that any collapse would mean instant death with no possibility of rescue. Yet some workers prefer this interior work, away from the sun's brutal heat, away from the chaos of the main construction site. The passage offers a kind of intimate focus. It is just you and the stone, you and the geometry, you and the challenge of fitting another block perfectly into place. There is meditation in this work, a quiet that allows the mind to settle even as the body strains. The overseers for the interior work are different from those managing the exterior crews. These are men who understand stone at a fundamental level, who can read the grain of limestone, who know by touch whether a surface is truly flat or merely appears so. They are patient, methodical, willing to spend hours ensuring a single block is positioned correctly before allowing it to be permanently sealed in place. One such overseer, perhaps his name is lost to us, or perhaps he was called Seneb, spends each day crawling through the passage, lamp in hand, checking every joint, every corner, every surface. He runs his fingers along seams, feeling for gaps too small for the eye to detect. He uses plumb bobs to verify that walls remain vertical. He stretches string lines to ensure straightness. His standards are absolute because the consequences of failure are unacceptable. At night, Seneb dreams about the passage. In his dreams, he walks through it standing upright as though it were a grand hallway rather than a cramped tunnel. He reaches the top and emerges into light so bright it seems to come from within the stone itself. He knows these are just dreams, the mind processing the day's work, but he also wonders if the dreams contain some deeper truth. Perhaps the passage is more than stone. Perhaps it is a symbol of the soul's journey, from confinement to liberation, from darkness to light. This interpretation would please the priests, who see every aspect of the pyramid in terms of spiritual symbolism. The ascending passage represents the pharaoh's soul rising from death toward rebirth. Its steepness represents the difficulty of this journey. Its narrowness represents the fact that only the worthy, only those who know the correct rituals and words of power can make this ascent successfully. As the passage nears completion, preparations begin for the next phase, the Grand Gallery. This structure will be unlike anything ever built, a soaring void within the pyramid's heart, a space that seems to defy gravity and logic. The transition from the ascending passage to the Grand Gallery will be dramatic, a sudden expansion from tight confinement to vertical grandeur. But before the Grand Gallery can be built, the level must be reached and the foundation prepared. This requires perfect calculation. The Grand Gallery will be approximately 47 meters long and rise to a height of more than 8 meters. It will need to be integrated with both the ascending passage below and the horizontal passage to the king's chamber above. All of these elements must align with millimeter precision. The architects consult their papyrus plans, documents covered in hieratic script and geometric diagrams. They check and recheck measurements. They sacrifice to Thoth, asking for his wisdom and guidance. They understand the weight of responsibility they carry. Any mistake made now will be locked into the pyramid forever, an eternal testament to human fallibility. Yet they do not make mistakes, or rather, any small errors that occur are caught and corrected before they can propagate. The work proceeds with almost miraculous smoothness, as though the pyramid itself desires completion, as though the stone cooperates with those who shape it. Workers who have been on the project since the beginning notice this. They speak quietly among themselves about the strange feeling that comes when working on the pyramid, a sense that they are building something that wants to be built, that guides their hands and steadies their feet. The priests nod knowingly when they hear such talk. Of course, the pyramid has its own will. It is not a mere pile of stones, but a living symbol of cosmic order, and cosmic order naturally aligns all things toward completion. The ascending passage is finished. The way is now open from the junction chamber up toward the heart of the pyramid. Soon, very soon, the Grand Gallery will begin to take shape. And above that, at the top of the gallery, at the culmination of the entire interior journey, the king's chamber awaits its moment of creation. The pharaoh Khufu, now perhaps in his 40s, visits the site regularly. He walks through the completed portions of the pyramid, his sandals touching stones that will never know daylight again. He stands in the ascending passage, feeling its upward pull, imagining his soul making this journey in the future, after his body has been mummified and sealed in the chamber above. Does he feel fear? Perhaps. Does he feel anticipation? Almost certainly. He is building his afterlife with stone and geometry, with human labor and divine will. He is transforming his mortality into something permanent, something that will endure long after his name is forgotten, long after his dynasty has fallen, long after the very language he speaks has become hieroglyphic mystery to future generations. The passage climbs upward into darkness. Soon, it will climb upward into light. The moment comes when the ceiling of the ascending passage falls away, and the Grand Gallery begins. Workers entering this space for the first time stop in wonder. The passage has been a tunnel, a conduit, comfortable perhaps, but clearly meant for passage rather than presence. The Grand Gallery is something else entirely. It is architecture as aspiration, stone shaped into prayer, 8.6 meters high, 46.6 meters long. The Grand Gallery rises at the same 26-degree angle as the ascending passage, but transforms that angle into magnificence. The walls are corbelled, each course projecting inward by approximately 7.5 centimeters, creating a stepped ceiling that distributes weight outward to the surrounding structure. The technique is simple in principle, but breathtaking in execution. The gallery is built with limestone blocks of unusual size and quality. These are not rough coarse stones, but carefully selected and fitted pieces. The surfaces are relatively smooth, nearly polished in places. Walking up the gallery, one has the sense of ascending through a royal hallway, a processional way designed to evoke awe and reverence. Along the sides of the gallery, low ramps run the entire length, separated from the central space by a raised floor approximately 2 feet high. These side ramps contain regularly spaced holes, slots, cut into the stone at precise intervals. The purpose of these holes will be debated for millennia. Some believe they held beams supporting a wooden floor, making the steep climb easier. Others suggest they supported some kind of mechanism related to moving blocks or sealing the passages. Still others propose more esoteric functions related to acoustics or ritual. The truth is, we do not know. The holes remain, cut into eternal stone, their secret locked within. The construction of the Grand Gallery requires extraordinary skill. Unlike the ascending passage, which could be built with relatively small blocks, the gallery demands massive pieces, some weighing many tons. These must be fitted together while maintaining the precise corbelling angle, while ensuring that each course is perfectly level, even as it projects inward from the course below. The work proceeds slowly, carefully. Each course is a challenge. Each block must be levered into position, adjusted minutely until it sits correctly, then locked in place by the weight of subsequent stones. There is no room for approximation. A single block placed incorrectly could throw off the entire gallery's alignment, compromising its structural integrity. Workers who toil on the Grand Gallery develop a special pride. They are creating something unprecedented, something that will be remembered, though they themselves will likely be forgotten. Their names will not appear in king lists or temple inscriptions, but their work will endure. Every stone they place, every corner they perfect, will speak for them across the centuries. The gallery takes shape over months or perhaps years. The pyramid continues to rise around it, enclosing the gallery in millions of tons of protective limestone. The gallery becomes a void within the solid, a breath held within stone lungs, waiting to be exhaled in some distant future when the pyramid is finally opened. At the top of the Grand Gallery, where it levels out and transitions to the horizontal passage leading to the king's chamber, a significant architectural feature is incorporated: the Great Step. This is a limestone platform, approximately 1 meter high and nearly a meter deep, that marks the transition between the gallery and the passageway to the chamber. The Great Step is not merely decorative. It serves a function, though exactly what function remains subject to interpretation. Some believe the Great Step was the base for a wooden platform used during construction. Others suggest it had a ceremonial purpose, a place where priests might pause during the final burial rituals, offering prayers before the ultimate sealing. Still others propose mechanical explanations related to the lowering of blocking stones. What we can say with certainty is that the Great Step was intentional, designed into the pyramid from the beginning. It was not an afterthought or modification, but an integral part of the plan. The architects wanted this feature here, at this precise location, for reasons they considered important. Beyond the Great Step, a low horizontal passage leads directly to the king's chamber. This passage is antechamber, a brief transition between the vertical grandeur of the Grand Gallery and the horizontal stability of the chamber itself. The passage is lined with granite, the first granite most visitors would encounter, a clear signal that they are entering the pyramid's most sacred precinct. The antechamber is more complex than it initially appears. Within it are grooves designed to hold large granite slabs, portcullis blocks that could be lowered to seal the way to the king's chamber. These blocks, when the time comes, will be suspended in the grooves, then lowered by cutting the ropes that hold them. Once in place, they will make the passage essentially impassable, protecting the pharaoh's resting place from violation. But that is for the future. Now, during construction, the passage remains open, allowing workers and materials to move freely. The portcullis blocks are stored elsewhere, waiting for their moment. The king's chamber itself is the focus of current work. The gallery's completion marks a milestone in the pyramid's construction. The most architecturally challenging interior space has been achieved. The way is now prepared for the chamber itself, the heart of the entire structure. Workers who have spent years on this project feel the significance of the moment. They are approaching the culmination of their labor. In the evenings, when work stops and the site grows quiet, some workers climb into the Grand Gallery simply to experience the space. They light lamps and set them at intervals along the gallery's length, creating a constellation of lights that stretches upward into darkness. The corbelled walls catch the lamplight, casting geometric shadows, patterns of light and dark that seem to shift and dance as the flames flicker. Standing at the bottom of the gallery and looking up, one sees what could be a pathway to the stars. The comparison is not fanciful. The ancient Egyptians understood their architecture in cosmic terms. The Grand Gallery is not simply a passage, but a representation of the pharaoh's journey from earth to heaven, from mortality to divinity. The steep angle is the difficult ascent. The corbelled ceiling is the heavens opening to receive the worthy soul. Acoustically, the gallery is remarkable. A voice speaking at one end can be heard clearly at the other. A deep note sung or chanted resonates powerfully, the sound reinforcing itself through reflection off the stone surfaces. If rituals were performed here before the pyramid was sealed, the acoustic properties would have made them unforgettable, every word and note amplified by architecture into something approaching divine voice. The Grand Gallery is complete. The way is open. The king's chamber awaits. The time has come to build the king's chamber itself. This is the moment everything has been leading toward. All the preliminary work, all the millions of stones laid in courses, all the passages and galleries exist to support and protect this single space. The chamber must be built to perfection because it is the pyramid's reason for being. The granite blocks arrive from Aswan, the journey taking weeks even during the optimal flood season. Each block has been roughly shaped at the quarry, but final fitting will occur here at Giza. The blocks are massive, each weighing multiple tons, far heavier than the limestone blocks that form most of the pyramid. Moving them into position requires all the skill and experience accumulated over years of construction. The chamber will be approximately 10.4 meters long, 5.2 meters wide, and 5.8 meters high. These dimensions are not arbitrary but carefully calculated. The proportions create specific mathematical relationships, harmonies that the architects consider essential. The chamber must be a perfect microcosm of divine order, geometry made manifest in the hardest stone available. The walls will be built with precision that seems impossible given the tools available. Each granite block must fit seamlessly with its neighbors, creating joints so tight that no mortar is needed, no gaps exist. This is not just aesthetic preference. The tightness of the joints contributes to the chamber's structural integrity. Each block bears on its neighbors, distributing load, creating a system where the whole is stronger than any individual component. The floor blocks are laid first, massive rectangles of granite that must be leveled with extreme precision. The architects use water channels to establish perfect horizontality. the same technique used to level the pyramid's base. The floor must be level because everything else depends on it. Walls built on an uneven floor will lean. Ceilings placed on leaning walls will crack. Once the floor is satisfactory, the wall blocks begin to rise. Each course is a challenge. The blocks must be dragged into position, probably using wooden rollers and levers, then fine-tuned by workers with copper wedges and stone hammers. The final adjustments require patience. A block might need to be lifted and lowered dozens of times before it seats perfectly. The corners where walls meet are particularly critical. These joints must be precise to prevent any shifting as the pyramid settles over centuries. The masons work each corner slowly, checking repeatedly, unwilling to proceed until they are completely satisfied. Their standards exceed even the demanding requirements of the project overseers. These men are artists as much as craftsmen, and the king's chamber is their masterwork. As the walls rise, workers begin to appreciate the chamber's proportions. The space feels neither too large nor too small. It is a room scaled for human presence, but suggesting something beyond the merely human. Stand in the center, and you feel the weight of stone surrounding you, yet also a strange sense of protection, as though the chamber is a sanctuary carved from the heart of the mountain. The most challenging aspect of construction is yet to come. The ceiling. 9 massive granite beams must be placed across the chamber's width, spanning 5.2 meters without any central support. Each beam weighs approximately 40 to 50 tons. Lifting these beams to a height of nearly 6 meters and positioning them precisely is one of the greatest engineering challenges of the entire pyramid project. The method likely involves ramps and levers. As the pyramid rises around the chamber, a ramp of limestone rubble and mud brick is built up to ceiling level. The granite beams are dragged up this ramp one at a time. At the top, a framework of wooden beams supports each granite beam while it is maneuvered into position. Picture the scene. Dozens of workers coordinating their efforts, pulling ropes, operating levers, inching the massive granite beam across the chamber's width. The beam must be absolutely horizontal. Even a slight tilt could cause it to crack under its own weight or create gaps with its neighbors. The work is slow, measured, terrifyingly dangerous. If the beam were to slip, workers could be crushed instantly, yet they succeed. The first ceiling beam is positioned, resting on the granite walls, spanning the void. Then the second, butting up against the first, with almost no gap between them. Then the third, the fourth, gradually roofing over the chamber, sealing it from the weight above. With all 9 ceiling beams in place, the chamber is structurally complete. But the architects are not finished. They know that millions of tons of stone will press down on this ceiling. Over millennia, even granite could potentially crack or shift under such pressure. Therefore, above the king's chamber's ceiling, 5 stress-relieving chambers are built, one atop another, each designed to bear part of the weight and prevent it from crushing the chamber below. These relieving chambers are not meant for human access. They are purely functional architectural solutions to an engineering problem. The lowest relieving chamber has a flat ceiling, like the king's chamber itself. The next 3 chambers also have flat ceilings, but the 5th and highest chamber has a pointed ceiling, a gabled roof of massive limestone blocks set at angles that direct the pyramid's weight outward to the surrounding structure. Building these relieving chambers requires continuing the same precision demonstrated in the king's chamber itself. Each chamber must be properly constructed, properly aligned. The gabled ceiling of the topmost chamber must be angled correctly to achieve the desired weight distribution. Errors at this level, hidden within the pyramid's mass, could lead to catastrophic failure of the chamber below. The work continues, day after day, block after block. The relieving chambers take shape, invisible from outside, unknown to anyone who doesn't have the architectural plans, yet absolutely essential to the chamber's preservation. This is architecture at its most sophisticated, solving problems that won't manifest for centuries, designing for a future the builders will never see. Finally, it is complete. The king's chamber exists. The walls are perfect. The ceiling is secure. The floor is level. The space is ready to receive its single piece of furniture, the granite coffer that will hold the pharaoh, the sarcophagus. The coffer is brought into the chamber before the final passage walls are completed. It must be installed now, because it is larger than the passages leading to the chamber. Once the chamber is sealed, the coffer can never be removed without destroying the chamber itself. This is intentional. The coffer and chamber are inseparable, designed together, meant to function as a single unit. The coffer is positioned precisely in the chamber's western half, aligned with the cardinal directions, oriented to the stars. It is empty now, waiting for the pharaoh's eventual death, the mummification process, the final burial ceremonies. But even empty, it transforms the chamber. The space now has a focus, a purpose. It is no longer merely a room, but a vessel within a vessel, a container designed to hold the transformation of death into life eternal. Workers who see the completed chamber speak quietly of its power. There is something about the space that evokes reverence. Perhaps it is the knowledge of what it represents. Perhaps it is the sheer effort required to create it. Or perhaps it is something inherent in the chamber's proportions and materials, some quality that acts on human consciousness in subtle ways. The king's chamber is ready. The heart of the pyramid beats in granite silence, waiting for its destiny. Years continue to pass. The pyramid rises to its full height. The final courses of limestone are laid. The pyramidion, the capstone, is prepared with gold leaf to catch the sun. The monument is approaching completion, and with completion comes the knowledge that one day, perhaps soon, Khufu will die, and the pyramid will fulfill its purpose. The passages remain open during these final years, allowing continued access for inspection and maintenance. But preparations for the eventual sealing are already underway. The granite plugs that will block the ascending passage are stored in the grand gallery, waiting. The portcullis blocks for the antechamber are in position, suspended in their grooves. The mechanism for sealing the pyramid is built into its structure, ready to be activated. The outer casing of fine Tura limestone is now being applied, beginning from the top and working downward. This limestone is brilliant white, polished to an almost mirror finish. When complete, the pyramid will gleam across the plateau, visible for miles, a mountain of light dominating the horizon. The casing stones are fitted with extraordinary precision, the joints between them almost invisible, creating a smooth surface unlike the stepped core. Khufu himself is aging. He is now perhaps in his 50s or 60s, an old man by the standards of his time. He has ruled for decades, seeing the pyramid grow from vision to reality. He has buried family members, made offerings at temples throughout Egypt, administered justice, led campaigns, performed the countless rituals that maintain Ma'at, the cosmic order that keeps chaos at bay. He knows his death is approaching. He does not fear it, precisely because he has been preparing for it his entire adult life. The pyramid awaits him. The rituals are ready. The priests know the words of power that will guide his soul through the underworld. His body will be preserved through mummification, transformed from corruption-prone flesh into something capable of eternal existence. The mortuary complex adjacent to the pyramid is complete. A temple stands at the pyramid's eastern face, connected by a causeway to a valley temple at the edge of the cultivation. These temples are for the living, places where offerings can be made to the Pharaoh's cave, his life force, sustaining it eternally. The priests who will serve these temples have been appointed, endowments made to ensure the offerings continue in perpetuity. Everything is ready. Yet Khufu continues to live. Days become weeks, weeks become months. The pyramid stands complete, waiting. Its single-occupied chamber empty, the coffer prepared but unused. And finally, the inevitable occurs. Khufu dies. The exact circumstances are unknown to us, lost in the mists of 4.5 millennia. Perhaps he dies peacefully in his palace at Memphis, surrounded by family. Perhaps illness claims him. Perhaps he simply reaches the end of his allotted years. However it happens, when his heart stops beating, a cascade of long-planned events begins. His body is immediately taken to the Wabet, the place of purification. The embalmers, priests who have trained their entire lives for this moment, begin the 70-day process of mummification. The body is washed, anointed, the brain is removed through the nose, considered unimportant, discarded. The internal organs are carefully extracted, treated, placed in canopic jars protected by the 4 sons of Horus. Only the heart remains in the body. The heart, the Egyptians believe, is the seat of intelligence and emotion. In the afterlife, the heart will be weighed against the feather of Ma'at. If the heart is heavier than the feather, burdened with wrongdoing, it will be devoured by Ammit, the demon, and the soul will cease to exist. But if the heart balances with the feather, the soul will be granted eternal life. Khufu's heart must remain with him for this crucial judgment. The body is packed with natron, a naturally occurring salt that desiccates tissue, preventing decay. After 40 days, the natron is removed. The body is washed again, anointed with oils and resins that smell of cedar and myrrh. The body cavity is packed with linen and sawdust to restore a lifelike shape. Then the wrapping begins. Layer upon layer of linen, each layer separated by resin. Amulets are placed between the wrappings at specific locations, magical protection for the journey ahead. The fingers and toes are wrapped individually, then the limbs, then the torso, then the head. A funerary mask of cartonnage, molded linen, soaked in plaster, is placed over the face. The final wrappings cover everything, creating a mummy, a body transformed into something between living and dead, between earth and eternity. The mummy is placed in a wooden coffin, which is placed inside a second coffin, which will be placed inside the granite coffer in the king's chamber. The coffins are covered in spells from the pyramid texts, magical formulae that grant knowledge and power to the deceased. These texts are ancient, passed down through generations, refined, and added to over centuries. They contain the map to the afterlife, the passwords, and protection spells needed to navigate the dangerous journey. The funeral procession forms at Memphis. The coffin is placed on a sledge draped with fine linen and flowers. The king's successor, probably his son Jedefre, leads the procession. Behind come the priests, chanting, shaking sistrums, creating sacred sound to drive away malevolent forces. Behind the priests come the mourners, professional wailers whose cries echo across the landscape, announcing loss, demanding the attention of gods and the like. The procession moves slowly from Memphis toward Giza, following the processional causeway that connects the valley temple to the pyramid. This journey takes most of a day. The sun beats down. The mourners continue their cries. The priests continue their chants. The coffin, containing the mummified body of the god king, approaches its eternal home. At the valley temple, purification rituals are performed. At the mortuary temple, offerings are made. Then, finally, the coffin is carried into the pyramid itself. The procession enters through the original entrance, high on the pyramid's north face. They descend the descending passage, then turn and begin climbing the ascending passage. This is difficult work. The passage is steep and narrow. The coffin must be dragged and lifted, carried by strong men who have practiced this moment. Slowly they ascend. They reach the grand gallery, and here the space opens up, allowing easier movement. The gallery climbs before them, its corbelled walls soaring in lamplight. At the top of the grand gallery, at the great step, a brief pause for final prayers, then through the horizontal passage to the antechamber, through the antechamber to the king's chamber. The moment has arrived. The chamber is lit with dozens of oil lamps. The granite walls glow warm in the flickering light. The coffer sits in its precise position, waiting. The coffin is lifted carefully over the coffer's edge and lowered inside. It fits perfectly, as it was designed to. The wooden lid of the coffin is not yet sealed, allowing one final look at the mummy within, one final moment of connection between the living and the dead. The chief priest speaks the final words of power. He recites the spells that will open the mouth of the deceased, allowing Khufu to breathe, eat, speak in the afterlife. He recites the spells of transformation, turning the dead pharaoh into an Ak, a blessed spirit capable of dwelling among the gods. The ritual takes hours. Every word must be perfect, every gesture precise. This is the moment of transformation, and nothing can be left to chance. Finally, it is complete. The coffin lid is sealed. The granite lid of the coffer is slid into place, covering the coffin, sealing Khufu in darkness and stone. The priests back out of the chamber, taking their lamps, leaving only one or two burning in the chamber itself. These will eventually consume all oxygen and extinguish themselves, but for now, they provide a brief final light. In the antechamber, the portcullis blocks are lowered into the grooves that have waited for them. Stone seals stone. The way to the king's chamber is blocked. The workers and priests retreat to the grand gallery. At the junction where the ascending passage meets the descending passage, the three massive granite plugs are released. These plugs have been held in place by wooden supports in the grand gallery. Now the supports are removed. The plugs begin to slide down the ascending passage, gathering speed, hurtling downward with unstoppable momentum. They crash into position at the bottom of the passage, sealing it permanently. The sound echoes through the pyramid, a deep groaning rumble, the sound of finality. The workers and priests exit through the descending passage, the last humans to walk these corridors. Behind them, the pyramid seals itself in silence. Outside, the entrance is carefully concealed with casing stones that match the pyramid's face, making the entrance invisible to anyone who doesn't know where to look. Khufu is alone in his chamber. The pyramid is complete. The transformation has begun. Time passes, decades, centuries. The pyramid of Khufu stands on the Giza Plateau, weathering slowly under sun and wind, unchanging in its essential form. The mortuary cult continues for generations, priests making daily offerings at the temples, maintaining the rituals that sustain the pharaoh's cave. But eventually, dynasties change, political centers shift, the old kingdom falls into chaos during the first intermediate period. The pyramid is not forgotten, but its meaning changes. It becomes a landmark, a monument to a distant past, a symbol of an age when pharaohs could command resources on an unimaginable scale. Later pharaohs look at it with a mixture of awe and envy. None will build on such a scale again. Something in Egyptian civilization has shifted. The age of the giant pyramids is ending. Inside the sealed king's chamber, nothing changes. The granite walls hold. The ceiling blocks remain in place. The coffer sits undisturbed. Khufu's mummy rests in darkness absolute, darkness that has known no light since the last lamps guttered out on the day of the burial. Time means nothing in this space. There is no day or night, no season, no change of any kind. Only stone and silence. The pyramid itself gradually loses its brilliant white casing. Earth tremors shake the structure over the centuries. Some casing stones fall away. Later, when Memphis is no longer the capital, when new cities rise elsewhere, the casing stones are deliberately removed, repurposed for building projects in Cairo and other settlements. The pyramid's surface changes from smooth, white perfection to the stepped appearance we know today, the underlying core blocks exposed to the elements. But the interior passages and chambers remain sealed. The granite plugs in the ascending passage hold firm. The portcullis blocks in the antechamber remain in place. No one enters the king's chamber for more than 3,000 years. The pyramid keeps its secret. Until the 9th century of the Common Era, the Abbasid Caliph al-Ma'mun, ruler of a vast Islamic empire, becomes fascinated with the pyramid. Stories circulate about treasures hidden within, about secret chambers containing the wisdom of the ancients. Al-Ma'mun organizes an expedition to enter the pyramid and discover its mysteries. His workers search for the entrance, but it has been too well concealed. After weeks of futile searching, they decide on a direct approach. They will tunnel into the pyramid itself. They choose a location on the north face, roughly where they believe the entrance might be, and begin cutting through the limestone. This is brutal work. The limestone is dense, resistant to their iron tools, vastly harder than the mud brick they are accustomed to working with. They use fire to heat the stone, then douse it with vinegar, causing it to crack. Slowly, meter by meter, they drive a tunnel into the pyramid's heart. By chance or providence, the tunnel intersects the descending passage. They have broken through. The way is now open. Al-Ma'mun's workers, carrying torches, explore the descending passage, descending to the subterranean chamber, finding it empty, unfinished, enigmatic. They return and notice the junction where the ascending passage should be, but it is blocked by the granite plugs. Impossible to move, impossible to break through. Instead, they tunnel around the plugs through the softer limestone. It takes days of exhausting labor, but eventually they break through to the ascending passage beyond the plugs. The way to the upper chambers is open for the first time in millennia. The workers climb the ascending passage, probably astounded by its steepness and precision. They reach the Sleepless Ancient Odyssey. Stop in wonder. The day is done. Even in torchlight, it is time even to let the noise of your world and filled with debris into silence. The gallery. Find your most comfortable position. They ascend the gallery. The next few moments, reach the great step. Relax. Crawl through the horizontal. Tonight's Odyssey navigate the antechamber, and then they stand in the king's chamber to the land of the Nile. They are the first humans to enter this space that have watched over humanity for 5,000 years. You will witness the birth of celestial science. You will walk among priest astronomers who mapped eternity itself. And you will discover how an ancient civilization read the stones, and not merely to mark time, the mummies touched the divine. This is not really history in some earlier. This is the story of humanity's first great conversation was never there at all. Whether you are here for a story to captivate your mind, the chamber has been a narrative to acquire antiquity, and the journey starts with Mu's arrival. If you enjoy these odysseys, the pyramid has yielded its physical treasure. Travel to the past, if any existed, now kept its deeper secrets intact. The Nile flows north, the desert's workers a ribbon of their lives in the relieving chambers above the king's chamber, which they access through a rough hole broken in the granite ceiling. Their graffiti remains to this day, Arabic inscriptions asserting presence, claiming discovery, marking history. The pyramid is now open. Over the following centuries, countless visitors will climb the passages, stand in the king's chamber, wonder at the precision and purpose of this ancient monument. Some come seeking wisdom, some come seeking treasure. Some come simply because the pyramid exists and they wish to see it. European travelers in the medieval and Renaissance periods write accounts of their visits. They describe the chamber's dimensions, speculate about its purpose, argue about who built the pyramid and why. theories proliferate. The pyramid is a granary built by the biblical Joseph. It is an astronomical observatory. It is a mathematical text written in stone. It is a power plant harnessing earth energies. Most of these theories are wrong, or at least unprovable, but they demonstrate something important. The pyramid, and particularly the king's chamber, continue to exert a powerful hold on human imagination. The space invites speculation, demands interpretation, refuses to yield a single, simple explanation. In the 18th and 19th centuries, serious archaeological investigation begins.
ده في واحد جايب البواب بتاعه بره وقاعد يقول الموبايل اتسرق وده سرق وفي مشكله كبيره قوي كده يا باشا.
دخلهم يلا.
ماشي يا باشا.
موبايل ايه وتفاهه ايه؟
Some of these discoveries are legitimate, others are coincidental, the result of applying enough mathematical operations to any set of measurements to find patterns. The chamber itself remains fundamentally mysterious. Why is it positioned where it is, high in the pyramid's body rather than at the base? Why is it built of granite when limestone would have been vastly easier? Why is the coffer larger than the passages, requiring it to be installed during construction? What was the purpose of the stress-relieving chambers above, invisible and inaccessible under normal circumstances? We have theories, some more plausible than others, but we do not have certainty. The king's chamber keeps its secrets even as it stands open to view. You can enter it today, crawl through the same passages Al-Ma'mun's workers navigated, stand in the same space where Khufu's mummy once rested. The experience is humbling. You are surrounded by stone that was placed there 4,500 years ago, touched by hands that turned to dust. Before Rome was founded, before Greece existed, before any civilization we would recognize as such. The chamber is a threshold between past and present, a space where time seems to collapse. The builders are gone, the pharaoh is gone, the civilization that created this marvel is gone, but the chamber remains, patient, silent, eternal. What is the king's chamber for? After all our exploration, after all the theories and measurements and investigations, this question remains surprisingly difficult to answer definitively. We know what the ancient Egyptians said it was for, a place of transformation where the dead pharaoh would be reborn as a god. But was it only that? Did the chamber have functions we still do not understand? Consider the acoustics. A human voice resonates powerfully in the chamber. Certain frequencies produce standing waves, patterns of sound that fill the space with vibration. If you strike a deep note or chant at the right pitch, you don't just hear the sound, you feel it, the granite itself seeming to vibrate in sympathy. This acoustic property was surely known to the ancient Egyptians. They were deeply interested in sound as a sacred force. Did they use these acoustics in their rituals? Were specific chants or hymns designed to resonate in this space, creating experiences of altered consciousness or spiritual transcendence? We can speculate, but we cannot know. The rituals were performed once, or perhaps never if the chamber was sealed empty, and then silence returned. The shafts in the chamber present another mystery. Two narrow channels, approximately 20 centimeters square, exit the chamber through its north and south walls. These shafts angle upward through the pyramid's mass, eventually reaching the exterior. For years, it was believed they were air shafts, providing ventilation. But this explanation makes little sense. Why would a sealed burial chamber need ventilation? More recent theories suggest the shafts have astronomical significance. The southern shaft from the king's chamber points toward the constellation Orion, specifically the star Alnitak in Orion's belt. Orion was associated with Osiris, the god of resurrection. The northern shaft points toward the circumpolar stars, the stars that never set, that circle eternally around the celestial pole. These stars were called the imperishable ones because they never disappeared below the horizon. They represented eternal life. If this interpretation is correct, The shafts are symbolic pathways for the pharaoh's soul. The BA would ascend through the southern shaft to join Osiris in Orion. The Ka would ascend through the northern shaft to circle eternally with the imperishable stars. The chamber thus becomes a launching point for stellar transformation, a place where the deceased transcends earthly existence entirely. But even this explanation, elegant as it is, remains speculative. We cannot ask the architects what they intended. We can only observe what they built and try to understand their thinking. The coffer itself raises questions. It was carved from a single block of granite with extraordinary precision. The interior is perfectly rectangular, the corners meeting at exact right angles, the surfaces polished smooth. This required enormous labor. Why go to such lengths unless the coffer served a specific purpose beyond merely holding a sarcophagus? Some researchers have noted that the coffer's internal volume corresponds to specific ancient measurements, possibly linking it to standardized weights and volumes. Could the coffer have been used as a master standard, a reference against which other measurements were compared? This seems unlikely, given its ultimate purpose as a burial container, but the possibility intrigues. Others focus on the coffer's lack of inscription. Most royal sarcophagi were covered in religious texts, scenes from the Book of the Dead, protective spells. Khufu's coffer is blank, not a single hieroglyph, not a single decorative element, just pure granite form. Why? Was it originally painted or inlaid with materials that have since vanished? Or was the blankness intentional, a statement of absolute simplicity, the pharaoh requiring no textual protection because the pyramid itself provided all necessary safety? The position of the chamber within the pyramid is also significant. It is not at the center, as one might expect. It is offset to the east and positioned relatively high in the structure. If you were to draw a vertical line down from the pyramid's apex, it would not pass through the king's chamber, but rather through empty stone nearby. Why this specific placement? What geometric or symbolic reason determined that the chamber should be exactly where it is? Some researchers point out that the chamber's position aligns with certain astronomical or terrestrial features. Others suggest that the offset position was necessary to balance the pyramid's internal structure, preventing stress concentrations that could lead to collapse.
اسمه بخيت وبيبدا يضايقه فبينفعل عليه وبيحاول ما يشتبكش معاه وفي الوقت ده بيخرج سعود وبيروح عليه عشان يستقبله ولما بيقربوا من العربيه بيظهر بخيت مره تانية وبيحاول يخبطهم وبيأكد سعود لعلي ان الشخص ده مش غريب عليه فبيقول له علي انه اكيد مجنون لانه حاول يخبطه وفي الطريق بيبقى سعود فرحان
جدا. The grand gallery leading to the chamber presents its own puzzles. Why is it so tall? Why the corbelling? Why the side ramps with their mysterious slots? Theories abound. It was a storage space for the granite plugs before they were released. It was a ceremonial processional way where rituals were performed. It was an acoustic chamber designed to amplify sound. It was a mechanical system for raising and lowering blocks. Perhaps all of these theories contain elements of truth. The Grand Gallery may have served multiple purposes, some practical, some ritual, some we have not yet considered. The ancient Egyptians were sophisticated thinkers who did not separate function from meaning in the way we sometimes do. A space could be mechanically efficient and symbolically charged simultaneously. A structure could solve engineering problems and encode theological truth in the same breath. Modern technology has allowed us to explore the pyramid in ways impossible for earlier investigators. Ground-penetrating radar, cosmic ray muon detectors, thermal imaging, 3D scanning, all have been applied to the Great Pyramid. These technologies have revealed interesting anomalies, spaces that seem different in density from surrounding stone, possible hidden chambers or passages. In 2017, the Scan Pyramids project announced the discovery of a large void above the Grand Gallery, a space approximately 30 meters long within the pyramid's mass. What is this void? Is it an unknown chamber, a structural feature, a flaw in our detection methods? The void remains inaccessible, unexplored, another mystery added to the pyramid's already long list. The king's chamber sits at the center of all these mysteries, literally and figuratively. It is the heart that everything else protects and points toward. It is the purpose that justifies the enormous expenditure of resources and human life. It is the sacred space where transformation was meant to occur, and yet, despite all our investigation, despite all our technology and theories, the chamber remains fundamentally mysterious. We can measure every dimension. We can analyze the granite's composition. We can model the acoustics. But we cannot fully grasp what the chamber meant to those who built it, what experiences they hoped to facilitate within its walls, what transformation they believed would occur in that darkness. Perhaps this is as it should be. Some mysteries are not meant to be fully solved. Some spaces resist complete understanding because their purpose transcends rational analysis. The king's chamber is a threshold between known and unknown, between past and present, between earth and stars. It invites questions more than it provides answers. Stand in the chamber if you ever have the opportunity. Feel the weight of stone above and around you. Touch the granite walls, polished by human hands 45 centuries ago. Look at the empty coffer and imagine the pharaoh who never made it there, or who did and has since vanished into time. Listen to the silence, a silence deeper than any you have known, a silence that has lasted millennia. In that moment, you are connected to the builders, to Khufu, to all the humans across the centuries who have stood in that space and wondered. The questions they asked are the questions you ask. The awe they felt is the awe you feel. The mystery that surrounded them surrounds you still. The king's chamber does not yield its secrets easily. Perhaps it never will. Perhaps it was designed to remain mysterious, a puzzle that each generation must contemplate anew, finding their own meanings in the precise geometry and patient stone.
وبيتهموا علي ان هو اللي خد فلوس ابن خالته عايز يورطه فبيفقد صعود اعصابه وبيبدا يهدد ابو هشام وبيعرفوا ان دلوقتي بقى خارج سجون وما بقاش يهمه حاجه وبيطلب منه يرجع له فلوسه فبيضحك ابو هشام وبيعرفوا انه كان بيعمل فيه مقلب فبيأكد لهم علي ان هو نفسه صدق انه اخذ الفلوس فبيسالوا سعود فلوسه ومكسبها وصل كام فبيبلغوا ابو هشام ان فلوسه ما فيهاش بركه وكل ما بيدخلها في شركه بتخسر وفي خلال سنتين مكسبه وصل 4000 بس فبيطلب منه السعودي يديه الفلوس لانه لسه خارج من السجن وعنده مصاريف كتير فبيقترح عليه ابو هشام انه يعدي عليه بكره عشان ياخدهم ولما بيرجع سعود البيت بتبلغه والدته انه خاله كلمه كتير وكان بيسال عنه فبيسالهم سعود هو كان عايزه في ايه فبتاكد له والدته انه ما قالش فبيعرفوا علي ان خالهم اكيد عايز يتراجع وما يخرجهمش من البيت فبيأكد سعود ان ده مستحيل يحصل فبيقول علي انه عارف ان خالهم مفيش فيه خير وبيعشق الفلوس وفي الوقت ده بيرن التليفون ولما بيرد سعود بيفهم خاله انهم مستحيل يطلعوا من البيت غير لما يلاقوا بيت تاني فبيبدأ الخال يكلمه بطريقه لطيفه وبيأكد له ان الضفر عمره ما يطلع من اللحم فبيستغرب سعود من طريقه خاله وبيبدأ يشك فيه فبيطلب منه خاله يجي له بسرعه عشان يكتب له البيت باسمه فبيتاكد سعود ان خاله بيستدرجه وخصوصا لما بيسمع صوت بخيت جنبه وبيطلب من خاله يديله العنوان اللي هو فيه عشان يجي له بسرعه فبيعرفه خاله العنوان وبيأكد عليه ما يتاخرش ولما بينهي سعود المكالمه بيقرر يكلم الشرطه.
The chamber becomes a mirror, reflecting our questions back at us. But perhaps there is something more universal we can find in the king's chamber, something that transcends cultural differences and historical context. The chamber represents a fundamental human impulse, the desire to create something that will outlast us, something that will speak for us to the future when we ourselves are silent. The workers who built the chamber knew they would not live to see the pyramid completed, yet they gave years of their lives to the project, working in difficult conditions, risking injury and death, all for a structure they would never fully experience. Why? Because they understood that some endeavors are worth undertaking even if you will not see their completion. Because they felt connected to something larger than themselves, a project that would benefit their community, honor their gods, ensure their civilization's place in eternity. This impulse is not unique to ancient Egypt. Every great monument, every lasting work of art, every institution built to serve future generations springs from the same source. We create things that will outlive us because in doing so, we transcend, however briefly, our individual mortality. We become part of something eternal.
وبيديهم العنوان اللي قالوا عليه خاله وبيعرفهم انه عايز يبلغ عن صفقة مخدرات، وبتوصل الشرطة وبيقبضوا على بخيت وخال سعود، وبيحاول الخال يفهمهم انه بريء وكان هنا لانه مخطوف، لكن الشرطة بيبقوا مقتنعين انه كان بيتفق مع بخيت على صفقة مخدرات. وفي الوقت ده بيخرج سعود مع علي وبيطلب منه ما يتكلمش معاه قدام والدته، فبيسألوا علي عن قصة بخيت، فبيأكد له سعود انه هيقول له بعدين، وبيعرفوا ان الشرطه قبضت عليه هو وخاله لانه كان ناوي يستدرجه. فبيرجع علي مره تانية يساله عن حكايه بخيت، وفي الوقت ده بيلاحظ سعود ان بيت جيرانهم طالع منه صوت مزيكا عالي جدا، فبيفهموا علي ان جيرانهم دايما كده وشغلهم بيبقى في اخر الليل.
The
فبيستغرب
coordination
سعود
of
لان محدش
thousands of
بلغ عنه،
workers,
والصبح
the
بيصحى
transport of
سعود وبيقول
materials
لوالدته
across
والراشد
vast
ان عنده ميعاد في
distances,
البنك،
the solution
فبيعرفوا
of
الراشد انه لو
engineering
ناوي يسحب
problems
قرض
that
هو
had
مش
never
هيضمنه
been
لانه
solved
شاف انه
before.
القروض ربا.
All of this for
فبيفهموا
a single
سعود انه
room,
مسلف واحد مبلغ
10
وان
meters
الاثنين
by
يتقابلوا
5
في البنك.
meters
وبعد
by
شويه
6
بيوصل
meters.
للخال وبيبقى
Why that
منفعل
much effort for
ومصمم
that
انهم
small A
يخرجوا من بيته،
space?
فبيفكروا
Because the
سعود
room was
بانقاذهم
not
بالخطف،
valued by its
فبيقولوا
size
للخال ان
but by its
الشرطه هم اللي
significance.
انقذوه، وبيبقى فاهم انه
The
كان
king's
عايز يورطه في
chamber
جريمه
was the
الاتجار
point of the
بالمخدرات.
pyramid.
فبيستغرب
Everything
الراشد لانه
else
خالهم
existed
ساب
to
التجاره
support
وبقى
and
بيشتغل في
protect it.
المخدرات. فبينفعل
In
الخال
building the
وبيطلب من الراشد
chamber,
يسكت،
the
فبيدعيله
Egyptians were
الراشد
making a
بالهدايه
statement
وبيخرج.
about what they
فبيحكي الخال
valued:
لوالده سعود ان اللي كان
precision,
خاطفه مجرم من
permanence,
زمايل
the
سعود،
proper
فبيحاول
honoring of
سعود
their
يقنع
divine
والدته ان
king,
زميله ده
the
كان معاه في
maintenance of
البعثه بس
Ma'at,
اختار
the
طريق
cosmic
الإجرام.
order that
فبيهمس
kept
الخال لسعود
chaos at
وبيبلغه
bay.
ان بخيت
These
بيسلم
values
عليه
are not
وبيقول
ours,
له انه لما
not
يخرج من السجن
precisely.
هينتقم منه مرتين،
We do not
وبيعرفه
believe in
انه مستعد
divine
يقول لوالدته
kingship
باقي
or
التفاصيل.
the literal
فبيفكروا
transformation of
سعود
the dead
بالتهديد
into
عشان يتراجع،
stars,
وبياخده في مكان
but
بعيد
we
عن
can still
والدته،
appreciate the
وبيعرفه ان
seriousness
واحد صديقه
with which
بيشتغل
the
في العقارات
Egyptians
شاف البيت
approached these
وقال له ان
beliefs.
ممكن وزارة التعليم.
They did not build the king's chamber carelessly or half-heartedly. They built it to last forever, and 4,500 years into forever, it still stands. There is something almost heartbreaking about the chamber's perfection. The builders could not have known that the pyramid would be violated, that the chamber would be opened and emptied, that their careful sealing would be circumvented. Yet despite the violation, despite the loss of everything the chamber once contained, the space itself survives. The architecture endures even when the purpose has been negated. This suggests something important about the nature of great work. The king's chamber has value independent of whether it successfully protected Khufu's mummy, independent of whether it facilitated his transformation into a god. The chamber has value simply because it exists, because it was built to such exacting standards, because it represents human capability at its finest. We often say that modern technology has surpassed ancient achievements. We can build taller structures, span greater distances, create more complex systems, Darkness settles over the pyramid, the same darkness that has surrounded it for countless nights across the ages. Inside the pyramid, in the king's chamber, darkness absolute reigns, unchanged by whether it is day or night in the world outside. The chamber waits, as it has waited for 4,500 years. It waits without impatience, without expectation, without consciousness of time passing. It simply is, existing in its granite permanence, indifferent to the human stories swirling around it. But if we could imagine the chamber dreaming, what would it dream? Perhaps it would dream of the hands that shaped it, the workers who gave their strength to pull granite blocks into position, who fitted each stone with patient precision, who polished surfaces until they gleamed in lamplight. Perhaps it would dream of Khufu, the pharaoh who commissioned it, walking through the completed space for the first time, understanding in that moment the magnitude of what had been created for him. Did he feel worthy of such a structure? Did he feel the weight of expectation, the burden of divine kingship that required such elaborate preparation for death? Perhaps it would dream of the sealing ceremony, the last light leaving the chamber as the priests backed away, lamps in hand, their chanting fading as they descended the passages. It does not need to transform pharaohs or reveal cosmic secrets. It only needs to be what it is, a precisely constructed space within an impossible mountain of stone, a human achievement that speaks across millennia. The stars wheel overhead, the same stars the ancient Egyptians watched, though the constellations have shifted slightly in their positions over the centuries. The circumpolar stars still circle the celestial pole, still imperishable, still eternal.
تضطر تلبس عباية وطرحة، فبتفهمها أم سعود إن ربنا موجود، فبيفكروا سعود بالتهديد عشان يتراجع، وبياخده في مكان بعيد عن والدته، وبيعرفوا إن واحد صديقه بيشتغل في العقارات شاف البيت وقال له إن ممكن وزارة التعليم تأجره منهم وتحوله مدرسة. فبيفرح الخال جدا بالعرض وبيأكد لسعود إنه موافق، فبيبلغوا سعود إنه محتاج يستلف منه مبلغ لما يأجر البيت لحد ما يدبروا أمورهم. فبيستغرب الخال لأنهم واخدين بيته وطمعانين في فلوس. وبعد شوية بيرجع سعود من بره وبيبقى خاله مستنيه وبيسأله هو عمل إيه مع صديقه اللي عايز يأجر البيت لوزارة التعليم. فبيعرفوا سعود إن صديقه بشره وطلب منه إنه بكرة يروح وزارة التعليم ويبقى معاه عقد البيت. فبيفرح خاله جدا لأنه هيقدر أخيرا يأجر البيت. فبيبلغوا سعود إن صديقه عايزه يعدل في عقد البيت لأن المساحة مش مناسبة إنها تبقى مساحة مدرسة، وبيفهموا خاله إنه كده هيبقى بيزور العقد. فبيطلب منه سعود إنه لو مش موافق ينسى الصفقة. فبيتراجع الخال وبيقول إنه موافق. فبيعرفوا سعود إن الموظف اللي هيساعدهم عايز 15,000 ريال. فبينفعل الخال وبيقولوا إن دي رشوة. فبيرجع سعود يطلب من خاله يتراجع عن البيع، لكن الخال بيوافق يقدم رشوة عشان ما يضيعش الفرصة. وبالليل بنشوف سعود وهو قاعد مع عيلته وبيسألوا علي هو امتى هيشتري عربية. فبيأكد له سعود انه لما يستلم فلوسه من ابو هشام هيشتري العربية. فبتقترح عليه والدته انه بدل ما يشتري عربية يتجوز. فبيسألها
tons held in perfect balance by precise engineering and patient construction. Touch the granite walls, smooth and cool, quarried from the deep south and brought here through enormous effort. Look at the empty coffer and consider all the hands that shaped it, all the hopes invested in it, all the mystery it still contains. You are standing in a space that has existed longer than most human civilizations. You are breathing air in a room that was sealed before Rome, before Greece, before the alphabet was invented. You are part of a chain of human experience that stretches back 45 centuries and will stretch forward into a future we cannot imagine. The king's chamber does not care whether you understand it. It does not care whether you solve its mysteries or appreciate its engineering. It simply is, and that is enough. It is a testament to human ambition and skill, to the impulse to create something that will outlast us, to the belief that what we do matters even if we will not be here to see its ultimate meaning.
لها سعود لو اتجوز وما اشتراش عربية يروح مشاويره ازاي؟ فبتقتنع والدته بكلامه وبتأكد عليه انه يلاقي وظيفة قبل ما يفكر في الجواز. فبيبلغوا علي انه لقى وظيفة مناسبة لسعود، فبيسألوا سعود ايه هي الوظيفة، فبيعرفوا علي ان السعدية اللي هو بيشتغل في الشركة بتاعتها عايزة سواق. فبيتضايق سعود لانه بيبقى شايف ان الوظيفة مش مناسبة ليه، لكن والدته بتحاول تقنعه يقبل بالوظيفة دي لحد ما يلاقي حاجة احسن. وبيأكد له راشد ان في ناس كتير معاهم شهادات ومش عارفين يشتغلوا، فبيتضايق سعود اكتر وبيسيبهم وبيخرج. والصبح بيروح سعود البنك وبيقابل أبوه.
Of discovering its ultimate secret. But perhaps the secret is simply this.
هشام عشان ياخد منه فلوسه، فبيحاول أبو هشام يقنعه إنه يسيب الفلوس عشان يشغلها له في الأسهم، فبيأكد
that it continues to matter across thousands of years.
لسعود انه محتاج مصاريف كتير وهيشتري عربيه واحتمال الفلوس دي ما تبقاش كفايه. وبعدها بيروح سعود لوزاره التعليم وبيقابل خاله اللي بيبقى متحمس جدا وبيطلب منه يدخلوا بسرعه يقابلوا صديقه ويمضوا العقد ويستلموا الفلوس. فبيفهموا سعود ان الامور مش بالسهوله دي وان الاجراءات بتاخد وقت، لانهم الاول لازم يدرسوا اوراق البيت وبعدين يبقوا يسلموا الفلوس. وبيسالوا لو اوراق البيت جاهزه، فبيسلموا لخالي الملف وبيبلغوا انه خلص كل التعديلات زي ما اتفقوا وعمل في العقد كل انواع التزوير. فبيتوتر سعود وبيطلب منه يسكت وبياخد منه الفلوس اللي هيرشي بيها الموظف وبيطلب منه يستناه. وبيدخل سعود لمكتب الموظف المسؤول وبيفهموا انه خاله مجنون وعنده بيت مساحته صغيره وهو عايز يأجره للوزاره عشان يعملوا فيه مدرسه، ولان خاله راجل خسيس دور عقد البيت وخلى مساحه البيت 4000 متر بدل 400. فبيستغرب الموظف وبيبقى متخيل ان سعود بيهزر، فبيأكد له سعود ان هو كمان مضغوط ومضطر يساعد خاله لان والدته طلبت منه كده وقالت له لو ما ساعدش خاله هتتبرى منه. وعشان يثبت له انه خاله مجنون بيقدم له رشوه 500 ريال وبيقول له انه خاله هو اللي نصحه يعمل كده. فبينفعل الموظف وبيفهمه ان دي مصلحه حكوميه واللي بيعمله مش هينفع، وبينصحه انه ياخد فلوسه ويخرج بدل ما يعمله مشكله. فبيقوم سعود عشان يقفل الباب وبيرجع للموظف وبيحاول يقنعه انه لو اعتمد الاوراق هيديله 20% من الايجار. فبيزيد غضب الموظف وبيهدده انه هيبلغ الشرطه. فبيقرر سعود يهرب بسرعه وبيقابله خاله وبيقرر هو كمان يهرب معاه. ولما بيبعد سعود عن مبنى الوزاره بيوقفوا خاله عشان يفهم اللي بيحصل. فبيقنع سعود انه ما لقاش صديقه اللي وعده يخلص له الورق ولقى موظف تاني، والموظف ده استغله واخد منه الورق والفلوس وفجاه وقف وقال له العقود مزوره. فبيلوموا خاله وبيتهموا ان هو اللي ورطه وبيطلب منه يرجع له فلوسه. فبيأكد له سعود ان الموظف اخد الفلوس لانه كان سايبهم في ملف الاوراق، وبيقدر يقنعه انه هيبقى متهم في قضيه تزوير ورشوه وهو اللي هيقف معاه وهيشيل التهمه عنه. وبعدها بيروح سعود مع علي عشان يقابل السعديه اللي هيشتغل عندها سواق، وبيظهر انها ست شديده جدا وبتفهمه انها عايزه فواتير لكل حاجه يشتريها وبتاكد عليه ان اهم حاجه عندها هي الامانه. فبيعرفها سعود انه امين جدا ومستحيل يقبل الحرام او يخلي حد يشكك في ذمته. فبتساله ام حمزه علي لو يضمن ذمه سعود، فبيقول لها علي ان سعود ذمته واسعه. ولما بتستغرب السعديه كلامه بياكد لها علي انه يقصد ان سعود ذمته نظيفه. فبتوافق السعديه انها تشغل سعود لان علي ضامنه، بس بتحذرهم انه لو فكر يخونها هترميهم هما الاثنين في الشارع. ولما بيخرج سعود مع علي بياكد له انه مستحيل يشتغل مع الست دي لانه ممكن يخنقها بسبب لسانها الصليط. فبيفهموا علي ان السعديه طيبه جدا وبتعمل كده لانها تعرضت للسرقه كتير من الناس اللي كانوا بيشتغلوا معاها. فبيبدا سعود يقتنع بالوظيفه على امل انه يقدر ينصب على السعديه. وبالليل بيرجع سعود البيت وبيلاقي خاله مستنيه عشان يساله هو قدر يرجع الفلوس ولا لا. فبيفهموا سعود ان الموضوع كبير وانه ممكن يدخل السجن، فبيخاف خاله وبيترجاه يساعده. فبيقول له سعود انه موافق يقف جنبه بس بشرط هو انهم يسيبهم قاعدين في البيت لحد ما يقدروا ينقلوا البيت جديد. فبينفعل الخاله وبيطلب منه يخرجوا من بيته. فبيهدد سعود بقى انه هيروح للموظف بقى وهيطلب منه يقدم الاوراق المزوره بقى للشرطه بقى وهيشهد عليه انه مزور ومرتشي وفاسد بقى. فبيتراجع الخاله غصب عنه بيوافق انهم يفضلوا قاعدين في البيت. والصبح بيصحى سعود عشان يروح شغله وبتبقى والدته فرحانه انه اخيرا لقى وظيفه. فبيسالوا راشد هو اشتغل ايه، فبيفهمهم سعود انه اشتغل مدير جراج قصر وشغله مهم جدا لانه مسؤول عن كل السواقين اللي بيشتغلوا في الجراج وكل صغيره وكبيره في الجراج لازم يعرفها. وبيكمل في كذبه وبيقنعهم انه شغله سري جدا وقبل ما بيخرج بيأكد على عيلته انهم ما يتكلموش عن شغله مع حد. ولما بيوصل سعود للقصر بيقابلوا علي وبيلوموا لانه اتأخر، وبيطلب منه يستعد عشان يوصل سعدية للشركة. وفي اللحظة دي بتخرج سعدية وبتتأمر على سعود وبتخليه يشيل الشنطة ويوصلها للعربية. وفي الطريق بيسمع سعود مكالمة بين سعدية وابنها حمزة، وبيلاحظ انها منفعلة لان ولادها عايزين يعملوا اجتماع قبل ما هي توصل الشركة مع انها المدير العام. ولما بتنهي سعدية المكالمة بيحاول سعود يفتح معاها نقاش وبيقولها ان النوعية دي من الموظفين لازم معاهم الشدة. فبتغضب سعدية لانه بيتدخل في حاجة ما تخصوش، وبتنصحه انه يحط لسانه في بقه بدل ما ترميه في الشارع ويرجع عاطل مرة تانية. ولما بيوصل سعود للشركة بيبقى متخيل انه يدخل اجتماع مع سعدية، فبيوقفوا حمزة وبيفهموا انه المفروض يستنى بره، وقبل ما بيخرج بيديله فلوس. فبيحس سعود بالاحراج وبيأكد له انه مش بياخد بقشيش. فبيعرفوا حمزة ان ده مش بقشيش، وبيطلب منه يخرج يشتري له سندوتشات كبدة ويرجع الباقي. وبيرجع سعود البيت وبيتفاجئ ان جارتهم سوسو بتصرخ وبتطلب من الناس يساعدوها لان البيت فيه حريقة. فبيقرر سعود يساعدها ويطلب المطافي وبيدخلها عشان تستنى مع عمه واخته لحد ما المطافي توصل. وبتدخل سوسو لبيت سعود وبتقابلها والدته واخته، وبيبقوا مستغربين انها داخله عليهم بالشكل ده، وكمان مش لابسه عبايه ولا مغطيه وشها. فبتقول لهم سوسو ان سعود هو اللي سمح لها تدخل. وفي الوقت ده بيوصل سعود وبيفهم والدته واخته ان دي جارتهم وبيتها حصلت فيه حريقه. فبتتعاطف مع والده سعود وبتقرر تستضيفها، وبتطلب من اخت سعود تجيب لها عبايه وطرحه عشان تتغطى. فبتعرفهم سوسو انها لما كانت مسافره بره ما كانتش بتبقى مضطره تلبس عبايه وطرحه. فبتفهمها ام سعود ان ربنا موجود في كل مكان والست لازم تبقى حشمه. وبعد شويه بيطلب الشرطي من سعود يجيب صاحبه البيت عشان ياخدوا اقوالها. فبيدخل سعود وبيطلب من سوسو تخرج تقابل الشرطي. فبتعرفهم سوسو انها حبت القعده معاهم وهتقابل الضابط وترجع. فبتاكد لها ام سعود بقى انها بتنام بدري. ولما بتخرج سوسو بتطلب ام سعود من ابنها انه ما يسمحش للست دي تدخل بيتهم تاني والا هتطرده معاها. وبيخرج سعود مع سوسو وبيحاول يفهم الشرطي ان الراجل اللي شافه بيتخانق مع سوسو الصبح ممكن يبقى هو السبب في الحريقه. فبتاكد سوسو للشرطي انها عايشه لوحدها والحريقه حصلت لانها نسيت الفحم بتاع الشوالع. وبتطلب من سعود ما يتدخلش في اللي ما يخصوش. فبيحس سعود بالاحراج. ولما بيمشي الشرطي بتحاول سوسو تقنع سعود انه يخليها تقعد في بيتهم لان بيتها اتحرق، لكن سعود بقى بينفعل وبيقول لها انه مش مسؤول عنها. وبعد شويه بيتفاجئ سعود بسوسو جايه ومعاها عمده الحي اللي اقنعته ان سعود زوجها وطردها من البيت وهي حامل. فبيحس سعود انهم بينصبوا عليه وبيبدا يحذرهم لانه عارف كل العاب النصابين. فبيظهر الضابط وبيحذر سعود يقول عليهم نصابين. فبيتوتر سعود وبيتراجع وبيفهموا العمده انه كان جاي يصلح بينه وبين زوجته بس دلوقتي هياخدوا الاسم الشرطه. فبيطلب منهم سعود يسالوا سوسو عن الوثيقه اللي تثبت انها زوجته. فبتاكد لهم سوسو انه واخد منها كل اوراقها لانه عارف انها يتيمه ومحدش هيحميها. فبيحلف سعود ان الست دي نصابه وكل كلامها كذب. فبتبدا سوسو تهدده وبتقول له انها عرفت مين النصاب اللي لسه خارج من السجن. وبتقرب من سعود وبتفهمه انها قابلت بخيت زميله وعرفت عنه كل حاجه. فبيسالها سعود هي عايزه منه ايه، فبتطلب منه فلوس. فبيقرر سعود يديها محفظته كلها لانه مش عايز يدخل في مشاكل. والصبح بيخرج سعود متاخر وبيشوف العفش المحروق بتاع سوسو. فبيقرر يتظاهر ان بيته اتحرق. ولما بيوصل القصر بيقنع سعديه انه اتاخر غصب عنه لان البيت اتحرق. فبتتعاطف معاه سعديه وبتحاول تديه فلوس عشان تساعده. فبيرفض سعود انه ياخد منها اي فلوس. فبتعجب سعديه بعزه نفسه وبتحس انها اختارت شخص مناسب يشتغل معاها. ولما بيرجع سعود البيت بيبدا علي يلومه لانه شاكك انه بيحاول يخدع سعديه وبيفكر انه اشتغل عندها بضمانته. فبيتظاهر سعود بالبراءه وبيأكد له انه تاب وبطل ينصب. وبيفكروا انه رفض ياخد الفلوس من سعديه وانه لو كان ناوي يستغلها كان خد الفلوس وحطها في جيبه. وبيأكد له ان سعديه ست صعبه ولسانها سليط وهو عمل كل ده عشان بس يتقي شرها لانه اتاخر على الشغل. فبيظهر ان علي مصدقه وبيقرر يعتذر له لانه شك فيه. فبيطلب منه سعود انه لما يشوفه مره تانية بيتكلم مع سعديه ما يشكش فيه، ولو حب يستفسر عن اي حاجه يجي ويساله. وبمرور الوقت بيظهر ان سعود قدر يكسب ثقه سعديه لدرجه انها بتديله بطاقه البنك عشان يصرف لها الفلوس بنفسه. وفي يوم بنشوف سعود وهو بيسلم لسعديه مبلغ سحبه من البنك وبيرجع لها البطاقه. فبتطلب منه سعديه انه يخلي البطاقه معاه عشان لما تحتاج فلوس البطاقه تبقى معاه. فبيحاول سعود يقنعها انها تخلي البطاقه معاها لانه شايف انها امانه وخايف تضيع او تتسرق منه، لكنها بتاكد له انها واثقه فيه وعشان كده عرفته الباسورد بتاع البطاقه. فبيقول لها سعود انه موافق يخلي معاه بطاقه البنك عشان هي اللي طلبت ده. وبيسالها لو عايزه تروح الشركه النهارده. فبتعرفوا سعديه انها النهارده هتفضل في البيت. فبيسالها سعود هي ازاي عايشه في البيت الكبير ده لوحدها وما فكرتش تتجوز راجل يحميها ويأنس وحدتها. فبتقول له بقى انها كبرت على الكلام ده، لكن سعود بيأكد لها انها لسه جميله. فبتضحك سعديه وبتقول له انها وصلت سن ال60 وعندها الضغط والسكر. فبيقول لها سعود ان اللي يشوفها مستحيل يدي اكتر من 30. وفي الوقت ده بيظهر ان علي موجود وسمع كل كلامهم. فبتعرفوا سعديه ان سعود بيقول انها المفروض تشوف عريس. فبيطلب منها علي انها تسيب الهزار البايخ ده وتشوف اللحمه اللي طلبتها منه. وبالليل بنشوف سعديه وهي بتفكر في كلام سعود ومبسوطه جدا. وفجاه بيظهر لها شبح ابو حمزه وبيفكرها انه كان صاحب الفضل عليها ولازم تفكر فيه هو مش في السواق اللي بيمسح العربيات، وبيأكد لها انها تبقى ليه لوحده حتى لو ميت. فبتتضايق سعدية وبتقرر تسيب شبح جوزها وتنام. والصبح بتقرر سعدية تسيب الشغل وتخرج مع سعود اللي بيقترح عليها انه يوديها الملاهي. فبتضحك سعدية وبتقول له انها ما بقتش طفلة. فبيأكد لها سعود انها مش المفروض تكبر نفسها بالشكل ده، وبيبقى شايف انها مش عايزة تعيش حياتها. فبتعرفوا سعدية انها عاشت اجمل ايام حياتها مع ابو حمزة الله يرحمه. فبيتضايق سعود وبيفكر ان ابو حمزة مات من 20 سنة، وبيأكد لها انها لو كانت هي اللي ماتت كان زمان تاني يوم اتجوز 4. وبيحاول يقنعها انها محتاجة الراجل يسعدها ويحبها. فبتقول له سعدية انها مش لاقية الراجل المناسب، وهنا سعود بيقرر يقول لها ان هو الراجل اللي بتدور عليه. وفي الوقت ده بنشوف حمزة وسمير وهم منفعلين لان والدتهم اتأخرت جدا، وبيلوموا علي لانه المفروض يعرف كل تحركات والدتهم. فبيبلغوا علي ان والدتهم مختفية هي وسعود. فبيزيد غضب حمزة وبيطلب من علي يروح بيت سعود ويعرف هو راح فين مع والدته. وبيروح علي لبيت سعود وبيسأل عنه والدته واخواته. فبيأكدوا له انهم مش عارفين عنه حاجة، وبيقترحوا عليه انه يكلموا على الموبايل. فبيقول لهم علي انه كلمه كتير وما ردش، وبيبقى مش عارف يتصرف ازاي لان ولاد سعدية بيدوروا عليها. وفي الوقت ده بيتصل بيهم سعود وبيبلغوا انه سافر الدمام يشتري قطع غيار للعربية وسعدية في بيتها. وبالليل بنشوف سعود وهو خارج من قصر سعدية ومعاه مأذون و2 شهود، وبيقابلوا علي وبيسألوا مين دول. فبيصدموا سعود وبيقول له انا اتجوزت سعدية. فبيتعصب عليه وبيأكد له ان ولادها ممكن يقتلوه. فبيفهموا سعود انه اتجوز سعدية جواز شرعي، وهي ست عاقلة وكبيرة وعارفة هي بتعمل ان شاء الله. فبيأكد عليه سعود كمان ان الجواز ده محدش يعرف بيه. وبعد شوية بنشوف سعدية وهي فرحانة جدا بجوازها من سعود، وبتسأله هو ليه ما قابلهاش من زمان. فبيرد عليها سعود انه اكيد ما كانش لسه اتولد يعني، وبيحاول يصلح الموقف بعد كده، وبيقول لها انه حاسس ان هو قصده يعني انه اتولد من جديد وعايش معاه في حلم. فبتطلب منه سعدية ان جوازهم يفضل سر لانها مش عايزه اولادها يعرفوا. وبعد ايام بنشوف حمزة وسمير وهم مستغربين ان والدتهم بقالها فتره مش بتيجي الشركه مع انها عمرها ما عملت كده. وبيستغربوا اكتر لان علي السكرتير بتاعها كلمهم واكد عليهم ان ما حدش يزورها في البيت، وبيبقوا خايفين انها تكون زعلانه منهم. فبيقترح حمزة على سمير انهم يفاجئوها ويروحوا لها البيت. وبيوصل حمزة وسمير لبيت والدتهم وبيقابلهم علي وبيحاول يمنعهم او يكلم سعدية يبلغها، بس هم بيصمموا انهم يدخلوا. ولما بيدخلوا بيتفاجئوا ان السعدية بتفطر مع سعود. هنا بتصدمهم السعدية انها اتجوزت سعود على سنة الله ورسوله. فبيفقد حمزة اعصابه وبيلوم والدته لانها اختارت سعود السواق عشان يبقى زوجها وما حافظتش على ذكرى والدهم. لكن سعدية بتعرفوا انها حافظت على ذكرى والدهم 20 سنة لحد ما كبرت الشركة وكبرتهم، وكل واحد منهم بقى له بيت وأسرة ونسيوها. فبيبدأ حمزة يهدد سعود بالقتل عشان يطلق والدتهم. فبتتحداهم سعدية وبتأكد لهم ان سعود هيعيش وهتكمل حياتها معاه، وبتطردهم وبتهددهم انها كمان هتحرمهم من الميراث. وبعد فترة بيدخل سمير متوتر وبيبلغ حمزة ان والدتهم جايه الشركة وبيطلب منهم انهم يخرجوا يستقبلوها. فبيتعصب حمزة وبيأكد له انه مستحيل يعمل كده وهي داخله الشركة ومعاها السواق قدام كل الموظفين. لكن سمير بيقنعوا انهم يستقبلوها ويسيروها ويسيسوها لحد ما تتطلق ويخلى لهم الجو وياخدوا ورثهم. وفي الوقت ده بتوصل سعدية وبيقوم حمزة عشان يسلم عليها ويبوس ايديها، لكن سعود بيمنعه وبيقول له انه مفيش داعي لانهم في مكان عام. فبيتهموا حمزة انه شارب حاجة لانه بيمنعه انه يسلم على والدته. لكن سعدية بتحذره انه يكلم زوج والدته بالشكل ده لانه بيغير عليها ومن حقه ينصحه يأدبه، وبتأكد عليه انه يسمع كلام سعود ويقول له يا عمي لانه بقى زوج امه. فبيتدخل سمير عشان يهدي والدته وبياخد ايدها عشان يدخلها المكتب. فبتستأذن سعدية من سعود اللي بيتعمد يستفز حمزة اكتر، وقبل ما بيدخل بيوقفه وبيديله فلوس عشان يجيب له سندوتشات كبده. وبيفكروا ان والدته قالت له يسمع كلامه لان زوج امه بقى عمه. وبعد فتره بنشوف ابو هشام وهو بيسال سعود عن الفلوس الكتير اللي بقى بيحولها له. فبيأكد له سعود ان الفلوس دي من وظيفته الجديده. فبيسال ابو هشام عن الوظيفه اللي بقى بيكسب منها المبالغ دي. فبيفهموا سعود انه بيشتغل في وظيفه كبيره بمرتب ونسبه وهو داخل بمجهود، وبرغم ان دخله من الوظيفه دي كبير الا انه بيفكر يغيرها بوظيفه اصغر. فبيقترح عليه ابو هشام يشتغل معاه في الاسهم. فبيفكروا سعود انه لما دخل سوق الاسهم حصلت ازمه سنه 88 وخسر كل فلوسه. لكن ابو هشام بيأكد له ان اللي حصل سنة 88 اتسبب في خسارة ناس كتير، وهو المفروض ان الوقعة تقويه. فبيصمم سعود على الرفض وبيبقى مش عايز يجرب مرة تانية. فبيفهموا ابو هشام انهم محتاجين واحد زيه عشان يحرك السوق. فبيوعدوا سعود انه هيفكر ويرد عليه. وبالليل بنشوف سعود وهو بيفرج ابو هشام على العربيات الكلاسيك اللي سابها ابو حمزة وسعدية محتفظة بيهم وبيقنعوا انه يشتريهم. فبيأكد له ابو هشام ان العربيه دي هتبقى صفقه كبيره وبيوافق يشتريهم. فبيطلب منه سعود يديله وقت لحد ما يقنع الورثه. وبيدخل سعود القصر وبيقابل سعديه وبيبدا يتغزل فيها. فبتعرفوا انها شافت ابو حمزه في الحلم، لكن سعود بيقاطع كلامها وبيقول لها ان في حد شاف العربيات الكلاسيك وعايزهم يشاركوا بيهم في مهرجان. فبتتحمس سعديه وبتبقى شايفه ان ده ممكن يفرح ابو حمزه. فبينفعل سعود وبيطلب منها تبطل تتكلم عن ابو حمزه لانه بيغير عليها. والصبح بنشوف سعود وهو بيقبض فلوس العربيات من ابو هشام اللي بيبقى مستغرب ان اصحاب العربيات وثقوا فيه وعملوا له توكيل عشان يبيع العربيات. فبيفهموا سعود ان صاحبة العربيات ست كبيرة في السن وبتثق فيه. فبيضحك ابو هشام لانه في حد ممكن يثق في سعود. فبيفكروا سعود بمغامراتهم زمان وعمليات النصب والاحتيال اللي كان شاهد عليه فيها. فبيتوتر ابو هشام وبيطلب منه يوطي صوته عشان ما حدش يسمعهم، وبيوعده انه لو اشتغل معاه في الاسهم هيعوضوا عن الفلوس اللي خسرها. وبيقرروا يعملوا معاهده عشان ما حدش يقول عن الثاني انه نصاب. وبعدها بنشوف سعود وهو في مكتب ابو هشام وبنعرف انه بيفتح محفظه اسهم خاصه بيه ويقنع اللي حواليه انه يديله فلوس عشان يستثمرها. فبيسال ابو سعد صديق ابو هشام عن افكاره للفتره الجايه. فبيعرفهم سعود انه بيفكر يستقطب الشباب اللي بيستخدموا النت ويخليهم يتكلموا عن الاسهم اللي هم عايزين سعرها يعلى عشان الناس تشتريها. فبيطلب منه ابو هشام وهو منفعل انه يقوم. فبيستغرب سعود وبيساله ليه. فبيعرف ابو هشام انه المفروض يقعد مكانه على المكتب ومن دلوقتي يعتبر نفسه هو المدير. وبيقرر ابو هشام يرقي سعود لمنصب المدير التنفيذي لشركته. وبيرجع سعود البيت وبيبدا يفكر في طريقه يتخلص بيها من سعديه عشان ما يجيش وقت وتساله عن الفلوس اللي خدها منها او عن العربيات اللي باعها. وبيقول سعود لسعديه ان الغرفه حر جدا، فبتعرفه انها تكلم عليه عشان يجي يشوف المشكله اللي في التكييف. فبيقول لها انه هيقوم يخرج شويه. وبعد شويه بيدخل سعود وبيتظاهر انه مصدوم ان علي وسعديه في الغرفه لوحدهم وبيتهمهم بالخيانه. فبتاكد له سعديه ان علي بيصلح التكييف. فبيبدا سعود يهددهم انه هيفضحهم ويرفع عليهم قضيه، لكن علي بياكد له انه بيعتبر سعديه امه. فبيقرر سعود يطرده من الغرفه وبيبدا يهين سعديه ويتهمها في شرفها. لكن سعديه بتاكد له ان زوجها ابو ولادها عمره ما وجه لها اهانه بالشكل ده وبتطلب منه الطلاق. فبيحاول سعود يبتزها وبيطلب منها تديله فلوس مقابل انه يطلقها. فبتقول له سعديه انها عارفه كل الفلوس اللي هو اخدها وبترجع تطلب منه الطلاق وبتطرده وبتقول له ان علي هو كمان مطرود. ولما بيرجع سعود البيت بيبدا علي يلومه لانه بيشك فيه واتهمه بالخيانه مع واحده عمرها 70 سنه. لكن سعود بيعترف له انه عمل كل ده عشان يخلص من سعديه وبيقول له انه دلوقتي عنده مشروع خاص وعايزه يشتغل معاه. وبيطمنه انه المشروع المره دي قانوني ومفيش فيه اي مخالفات. وبعد فتره بنشوف سعود وهو بيعرض على ابو هشام واصحابه انهم ياسسوا شركه زراعيه. فبينفعل ابو هشام وبيفهموا ان الشركه اللي هم فيها ملهاش اصول عشان يحولوها لشركه زراعيه. فبيبدا سعود يشرح لهم انه مش محتاج غير ارض زراعيه. فبيعرفوا ابو عبد الكريم ان في ارض معروضه عليه بمبلغ بسيط جدا. فبيفهموا سعود انه هيشتروا الارض دي ويعملوا اصول للشركه بالمبلغ اللي هم عايزينه ويبيعوا الارض ويشتروها بينهم وبين نفسهم لحد ما سعرها يتضاعف. فبيتصدم ابو هشام من افكار سعود وبيقتنع بفكرته. وبمرور الوقت بيكبر اسم سعود وكل الناس اللي بيستثمروا في الاسهم بياخدوا رايه قبل البيع والشراء. وبعدها بنشوف راشد وقاعد مع علي وسعود وبياكد لهم انه ما عرفش البيت بعد ما جددوه وجابوا اساس جديد. فبيعرفوا سعود انهم كسبوا مبلغ كويس من تجاره الاسهم اللي هو كان مش موافق عليها وشايف انها ربا. فبياكد له راشد انه غير وجهه نظره وفكر يعمل مشروع جديد ومعاه مساهمين من شارعهم والشوارع اللي حواليهم. فبينصحوا سعود انه ما يفكرش في مشاريع ويشوف السوق محتاج ايه، ولو عايز يفهم اكتر يشوف اللقاء التلفزيوني اللي هيظهر فيه. فبيترجع علي يخليه يطلع معاه في التلفزيون. وفي الوقت ده بيبقى خال سعود في الحجز بسبب عمليه احتيال بسيط عملها في السوق. وبيقابل بخيت وبيتفق معاه انه يتنازل عن المحضر اللي عمله ضده لما خطفه بشرط انه يخرج سعود من بيته. فبيساله بخيت لو عايزه يقتل سعود، لكن الخال بيأكد له انه مش عايز منه اكتر من انه يروح البيت ويضرب سعود ويخوفه ويخليه يسيب البيت. وبعدها بنشوف هدى اخت سعود ووالدته ما بيسجلوا اسماء الستات اللي ادوهم الذهب بتاعهم. فبيدخل راشد وبيقول لهم ان لو جيرانهم اتبرعوا بالذهب ده للفقراء هو مستعد بقى يوصله. لكن والدته بتفهمه ان جيرانهم بعتوا الذهب ده عشان يستثمروا بيه لما عرفوا ان سعود بقى بيستثمر في الاسهم وكل استثماراته بتكسب. وبمرور الوقت بتنجح كل خطط سعود في السيطره على سوق الاسهم وبيبدا يظهر في الجرايد وفي التلفزيون وبيقدر ياخد تصاريح لشركته الوهميه. وبعدها بنشوف الخال وهو بيزور عيله سعود في البيت. فبتاكد له ام سعود انها كانت بتسالهم دايما عنه لانه كان مختفي وبيسالوا عليه هو كان مختفي ليه. لكن الخال بيقول لهم ان هو كمان طلع بعثه لسويسرا. وفجاه بيلاحظ الخال الطفل اللي هدى وعلي اتبنوه. فبيستغرب وبيسالهم هم خلفوا الطفل ده امتى ولسه سايبهم من شهر. فبيفهموا سعود ان الطفل ده علي وهدى اتبنوه مش زي الناس اللي عايزين يطردوا اختهم واولادها من بيتهم. فبيأكد له الخال ان الناس دول مش اسوأ من اللي معاه فلوس وقادر يشتري بيته ومش عايز يطلع من بيته. فبينفعل سعود وبيفهمه انهم مش عايزين يطلعوا من البيت لان والدتهم عايزه تعيش هنا. وبيبدا يهددوا ويفكروا بالعقود المزوره اللي قدمها لوزاره التعليم. فبيصدموا الخال انه اكتشف الحقيقه وعرف انه نصب عليه وبيوعده انه هيربيه. وبعدها بيتصدم سعود لما بيشوف بخيت داخل البيت مع خاله. فبيهددوا بخيت انه يشرب من دمه. فبيحاول سعود يهديه وبيفهمه ان اللي عمله فيه ما يستاهلش كل ده. لكن بخيت بيعرفوا انه كان سبب في دخوله السجن وتشريد عيلته وزوجته ماتت وهو في السجن وابنه ضاع ومش عارف مكانه. وبعد كل ده يقول ما يستاهلش كل ده وبيبقى شايف ان قتله حلال. فبيبدا سعود يلوم بيلوم خاله لانه بيبقى متاكد ان هو اللي عرف بخيت مكانه، وبيتدخل عليه وبيوعد الخال انه لو بيعمل كل ده عشان البيت هيخليهم يطلعوا منه، وبيأكد له سعود انهم لو عملوا مسابقه للنداله هيفوز بجائزه اندل خال في العالم. لكن الخال بيقول لهم انه عارف انه ندل وبيأمر بخيت يرميهم بره، فبيهددوا بخيت انه هيقتلوا معاهم. فبيأكد له سعود انه لو عمل كده هيموت وهو مطمن. فبيقول علي انه مش عايز يموت لانه دلوقتي بقى عنده طفل وعايز يربيه ويشوفه وهو بيكبر، وبيطلب منهم بخيت انهم يقولوا الشهاده عشان هيقتلهم، بس علي بيوعده انه لو قتلهم مش هيبلغ عنه لانه عايز يعيش. وفي اللحظه دي بيخرج شاكر الطفل اللي اتبناه علي وبيتصدم بخيت ساعتها لانه ابنه. وهنا بقى بيقرر سعود يستغل الفرصه، بيفهم بخيت انه لما خرج من السجن كان كل همه انه يدور على زوجته وابنه لانه وعده انه يهتم بيهم، وبيحكي له انه زوجته دهستها عربيه وهو اخذ الولد واداه علي عشان يربيه. بيقتنع بخيت بكلامه وبيقولوا انه خلاص عفى عنه لانه قدم له معروف. فبيقول لهم بخيت انه هياخد ابنه وهيمشي، لكن علي بيأكد له انه لو خد الطفل ده هدى هتموت زي زوجته. فبيقترح عليه سعود انه يسيب شاكر لعلي واخته يربوه لانه مجرم، ولو اخد الولد ممكن يطلع زيه. فبيعرفهم بخيت انه موافق بشرط يزور ابنه كل اسبوع. فبيعرض عليه سعود انه يشتغل عنده في الشركه بمرتب كويس، فبيوافق بخيت فورا وبيسأله ايه طبيعه عمله. وبعد فتره بيزيد الطلب على اسهم شركه سعود الوهميه، وبيقرر علي يبيع أرض والده ويشتري بثمنها أسهم. فبينصحوا سعود يشتري أسهم في شركته. وبعدها بنشوف سعود وهو سهران مع أبو هشام في الاستراحة بتاعته، ولما بيلاحظوا أصحابهم إنهم ناويين يشربوا بيقرروا ينسحبوا. وعلى الناحية التانية بيوصل أفراد من هيئة الأمر بالمعروف وبيقرروا يقبضوا على كل اللي في الاستراحة لأنهم عارفين إنهم بيشربوا خمر. ولما بتظهر آثار الشرب على سعود بيحاول يقنع أبو هشام يعرفوا السر اللي بيصنع بيه المشروب، فبيرفض أبو هشام وبيفهموا إن المشروب ده سر خلطته خاص بيه هو. فبيطلب منه سعود يديه كرتونة لأن العيد داخل وهيبقى عنده عادات كتير. فبيعرف ابو هشام انه لو عايز يشرب لازم يجيله، فبيقرر سعود يمشي وبيقول ابو هشام يخلي باله من نفسه لحسن يقع في حمام السباحه وهو مش هيقدر يساعده لانه مش بيعرف يعوم. فبيقوم سعود رميه في حمام السباحه. ولما بيخرج سعود بنكتشف ان موظفين الهيئه بيراقبوا استراحه تانية غير استراحه ابو هشام، ولما بيشوفوا سعود بيحاولوا يوقفوه عشان يتكلموا معاه. فبيتوتر سعود وبيبقى متخيل انهم عايزين يقبضوا عليه وبيقرر يهرب. فبيتحرك موظفين الهيئه وراه لحد ما بيوصلوا له. فبيحاول سعود يتحجج لهم انه تعبان وعنده السكر ومش قادر يتكلم. فبيقول الموظف انه عايز يساله سؤال واحد، يشتري اسهم في اي شركه. والصبح بيحكي سعود لعلي اللي حصل، فبينصحوا عليه انه يبطل شرب لانه حرام وكمان عشان ما يتعرضش لموقف زي ده تاني. فبيأكد له سعود انه خلاص تاب. فبيبلغوا علي ان في مستثمر جديد في سوق الاسهم اسمه هادي عايز يقابله، وبيعرفوا ان هادي لسه داخل الاستثمار في الاسهم من فتره قريبه بس قدر يجمع فلوس كتير. وبيروح سعود مع علي عشان يقابله هادي، وبيكتشف سعود انه كان شخص بسيط جدا وكان دايما بيشوفه في البنك بيدور على شغل، وبيعرض عليه هادي يديله 60 مليون عشان يشغلهم له. فبيتفاجئ سعود بس بيوافق. وبعدها بيقرر سعود يطالب بحقه في الشركه، وبيعرف ابو هشام وشركائه انه عايز نصيبه ويقدر ب 15 مليون ريال. فبيضحك ابو هشام وبيسخر منه وبيفكروا انهم كانوا بيدوه مرتب 10,000 كل شهر وكمان ادوا له اسهم في الشركه، وبيقرر يعاقبوا على طمعه ويفصلوا من الشغل. لكن سعود بيهدده انه هيفضحهم لأن هو الوحيد اللي عارف إن الشركة سنداتها وهمية وعارف كمان الأراضي الزراعية سعرها ضعف إزاي. لكن أبو هشام بيفكروا إن هو اللي مضى على كل حاجة وكل دي أفكاره. وبيرجع سعود البيت وبيتصدم لما بيقابله موظف من جمعية الإصلاح الأسري وبيشوف معاه سوسو. فبيأكد له سعود إنه ملوش علاقة بالبنت دي والطفل ده مش ابنه. فبيفهموا الموظف إنهم عايزينه يساعد البنت ويبقى واسطة خير. وبتدخل سوسو مع سعود وبتحكي له إن أبو هشام هو اللي جابها من بلدها بفيزة شغل واتجوزها عرفي، ووعدها إنه يوثق الجواز ورجع في كلامه وأخد جواز السفر بتاعها. وبتأكد له إن كل المصايب اللي حصلت في حياتها كانت بسبب أبو هشام لأنه خدعها وما كانش حتى معرفة اسمه الحقيقي. وبتترجى يساعدها وبتأكد له إنها مش معاها حتى تمن الحليب بتاع ابنها. فبيوعدها سعود إنه هيجيب لها سكن مؤقت لحد ما يلاقي حل لمشكلتها. وبيروح سعود مع سوسو وبيوصلها بيت هدى القديم وبيعرفها إنها تقدر تعيش فيه لحد ما تدبر أمورها. وتاني يوم بيقرر سعود يقابل أبو هشام اللي بيبقى متخيل إنه جاي يقابله عشان يرجعه الشغل، وبيفهمه إنه عمل اجتماع مجلس إدارة للشركة وكلهم رفضوا رجوعه. فبيعرفوا سعود إنه جاله مخصوص بخصوص سوسو اللي ضحك عليها ورماها في الشارع. لكن ابو هشام بيقول ان الموضوع ده خاص بيه وبيطلب منه ما يتدخلش فيه. فبيأكد له سعود انه جاي عشان يحل الموضوع معاه بشكل ودي. فبيقرر ابو هشام يطرده وبيرجع سعود لسوسو وبيبلغها انه قابل ابو هشام وحاول يحل الموضوع ده معاه بشكل ودي وهو رفض. وبيبقى شايف ان دي فرصته لانه كان عايز حجه عشان ضميره يرتاح ويقدر يعمل اللي فيه اللي هو عايزه. وبعدها بنشوف سعود وهو بيقابل موظفين الهيئه وبيبلغهم انه جايب لهم صيد سمين وبيعرفوا ان ابو هشام عنده مصنع خمر في الاستراحه بتاعته. وبيروح سعود وبيوصلهم لاستراحة أبو هشام، ولما بيتأكد إنه دخل الاستراحة بيقرر يمشي. وبيدخل موظفين الهيئة ومعهم ضابط وبيقبضوا على أبو هشام اللي بيترجاهم ما يفضحوهوش لأنه تاجر كبير وليه اسمه في السوق. وبيأكد لهم إن الخمرة اللي لقيوها هو بيصنعها لنفسه مش بيبيعها. فبيسخر منه موظفين الهيئة لانه مصنع كل الكميه دي لمزاجه، وبيعرفوا انه هيحجزوا له الصبح وبكره هيتعرض على المحكمه. وتاني يوم بيصحى سعود من النوم وبيسال والدته عن علي وهدى، فبتعرفوا والدته انهم سافروا فرنسا يغيروا جو واخدوا معاهم شاكر، وبتطلب منه والدته انه ينقل لها اخبار سوق الاسهم اول باول عشان تعرف ستات الجيران اللي عايزين يستثمروا. وفي الوقت ده بيوصل بخيت وبيتهم علي وهدى انهم خطفوا ابنه لانه راح لهم البيت ومحدش كان موجود، فبيحاول سعود يهديه. ولما بيدخلوا البيت بيفهموا ان علي وهدى اخدوا ابنه وسافروا فرنسا يغيروا جو، فبيترجى بخيت يجيب له تذكره عشان يسافر فرنسا يشوف ابنه. فبيفهموا سعود انه محتاج له في شغل، انه يفتح شركه جديده وعايزه يبقى معاه عشان يامنه. وعلى الناحيه الثانيه بنشوف حمزه وسمير وهم بيبشروا سعديه ان رصيدهم في البنك اتضاعف بسبب تجاره الاسهم، وبنعرف انهم باعوا شركه المقاولات اللي سابها والدهم وقرروا يستثمروا في الاسهم. فبتفرح سعديه جدا وبتاكد لهم انها كانت محتاجه تسمع الخبر ده بعد ما سعود خدعها وسرقها. وفي الوقت ده بيوصل سعود للهيئه وبيقابل الموظفين اللي قبضوا على ابو هشام، وبيترجاهم يخلوه عندهم يومين 3 لحد ما يتوب وما يعرضوش على المحكمه، وبيأكد لهم انه مسكين ومسؤول عن 20 طفل ولاده وولاد اخواته، وبيطلب منهم يسمحوا له يزوروا. وبيدخل سعود لابو هشام وبيقرر يبتزه عشان يرجع حق سوسو ويتنازلوا عن حصته في الشركه، وبيهددوا انه لو ما وافقش هيخلي موظفين الهيئه يحولوه للمحكمه ويشهد ضده. فبيستسلم ابو هشام وبيوافق ينفذ له كل طلباته، وبيرجع سعود لسوسو وبيبلغها ان ابو هشام هيعوضها ب1,000,000 ريال وهيديها جواز السفر بتاعها عشان ترجع بلدها. وبيروح يقابل موظفين الهيئه وبيعرفهم انه بيتراجع عن كلامه وعايزهم يعملوا اختبار لابو هشام عشان يتاكدوا انه تاب وينفع يخرج ولا لا. وبيدخل سعود مع موظفين الهيئه للغرفه اللي محتجزين فيها ابو هشام وبيبداوا يسالوه اسئله في الفقه، وبيفشل ابو هشام يجاوب على اي سؤال، وبيحاول يفهمهم انه مسلم وبيقول الشهادتين وبيصوم وبيصلي. لكن سعود بيأكد لهم ان ده مش كفايه ولازم يبقى عارف اكتر عن دينه، وبيطلب منهم يخلوه في الحجز وبيوعدهم انه يهتم بوالدته المريضه وبأولاد اخواته الايتام اللي هو مسؤول عنهم، وبيبقى متعمد يورطه ويخليه يدخل السجن. وبعد فتره بيقدر سعود يفتتح شركه خاصه بيه، وبيخرج ابو هشام من السجن وبيروح ابو عبد الكريم وابو سعد عشان يسلموا عليه، فبيعرفهم ابو هشام ان سعود هو اللي ورطه وكان سبب في دخوله السجن، وبيوعدهم انه هينتقم منه. وبعدها بيتصدم سعود لما